Yes, we can see Jackie.
Right, so there we are. Thank you to Callum. Okay, right then. Oh, I'm hopeless with technology. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a bit about me, and Sheena will tell you a bit about herself when we come to that. So that's who I am. Wife, mum, midwife. Callum. Proud, chuffed, over the moon to be Beyond Bea patron. Lovely charity, absolutely, yeah. A new and young charity, and all those other things that I'm involved in. Involved with a patron of Mummy's Star, Mum, Pete's going to be speaking in a minute, chair of the Iolanthe Trust and so on. So really passionate about supporting the third sector, supporting midwives, supporting student midwives to do the best that they can to support and help improve care in maternity services. So Beyond Bea is a fairly new and young charity, which the aim is to support bereaved families, raise awareness of baby loss, and support the healthcare professionals out there, not just midwives and future midwives, but support workers, doctors, doulas, anyone that's there, that are out there helping care for mums, babies, families, particularly in today's NHS, where we tend to sort of have less budgets, less midwives, less staff, cut corners. We cannot afford to cut corners when we're giving care to bereaved families. So this is what Beyond Bea is about. There's a third sector charity supporting the NHS maternity care to do the best that they can for families. This charity supports and provides online study days like today, well, today's a conference, a virtual conference, sessions, even does Insta discussions. If you've ever got the opportunity to join in an Instagram discussion, they are absolutely amazing. Steph leads on it, and she also looks for people to sort of join in. I joined in one the other day, and it was absolutely amazing, just on Instagram live discussion for an hour. So it's absolutely fabulous, and it's not just about baby loss. She talks about a whole lot of wider issues. And we have an annual conference, which is this one, and today it's the first time that we've done this sort of on this scale, so with over 700 subscribers. So as I said, bear with us if there's any technical hitches. Beyond Bea, like every charity, and we're challenged today, particularly with the pandemic, relies on donations and fundraising. So thanks to everyone that supports not just Beyond Bea, but all of the other charities in today's sort of challenged pandemic sort of crisis that we're in. But we do rely on fundraising and donations. And today, if anyone out there is thinking about donation, everything's going to be divided up between today's charities that are joining in, so it's going to be fair. Now then, I just have to mention Steph, our founder. Steph is in the background here. She'll probably give us a wave at some point during the day, but Steph founded Beyond Bea. And I'm not small and I'm not mighty, but I have got mighty admiration for the work that Steph has done in such a short time. She's a midwife, and she's founded the charity on behalf of her beautiful baby daughter Bea, whom sadly is an angel baby. And Steph decided that she was going to turn this real tragedy into something very, very positive and help other mums, dads, families out there. So it's absolutely brilliant what she's done in such a short space of time. Now, today's conference, this 3 slides here is to, you know, that there's a publication, it's Steph's publication, which is about more than a statistic, compassion and baby loss training, and it's in this month's BGM. So congratulations on your publication, Steph. It's a really good read. And just to add that, although we are challenged with some of the formula challenges, Beyond Bea do not, or any of the charities do not support sort of formula advertising in any way. So just to add that, but it is about the publication. It is worth a read if you can get a copy. Now, the charities are all here today. We've got some wonderful charities. We've got Pandas Mama, ARCS, Mummy's Star, For Louis, Strep B support. They're at peaks, absolutely fantastic. And it's unusual that we've got so many of these charities all speaking today. So it's an absolutely wonderful occasion that we've managed to do this and bring everyone together. We want to thank the charities and the people that are supporting us here today. obviously Sheena is representing All for Maternity, thanks to Sheena too, but it's just so good and so unique to bring all of these charities together so that we can share, we can learn, we can utilise resources when we're back at work, when back in the NHS, and we can share it with the midwives and future midwives that are out there. So it's about learning and sharing today and taking it all back to the clinical setting and help to improve care for mums and families. So enjoy today. I think there were a few slides before we started showing what the housekeeping rules were, sort of keeping your camera off, making sure that you're muted, but if you want to ask a question, go into the chat box, use the small but mighty conference hashtag. If you're tweeting, feel free to tweet. Sheena and I will be tweeting throughout the day. And it doesn't matter if you're in your pyjamas or if you're in your sort of ball gown, just relax, chill out and enjoy today and have a fabulous day. And I'll speak to you later. I'm going to hand over to the lovely Sheena now. Thank you, Sheena.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be here with you all. What an honour to be sharing with Jackie this fabulous event. And I kept thinking about it, you know, yesterday, thinking about how Steph has brought all the charities together, and instead of just thinking about her own work, she's collaborated and lifted everybody up. So like Jackie, I'm in awe of what she's doing, and she does it in such a compassionate, kind, caring way, and you know, it's a real example to us all. So well done, Steph, for everything that you do. And I agree with Jackie that Insta Lives are phenomenal, and she really brings everybody into the conversation rather than polarizing everything. So I just yeah, got a lot of respect for you, Steph. So well done. It's amazing. So I'm going to go on to so sorry, introducing myself. I'm a midwife. I'm a practicing midwife, and with my daughter Anna, who is also a midwife, we own and run the Practicing Midwife Journal, which is part of All for Maternity, and we also have a student midwife journal. And we call ourselves Education with a Heart, because everything we do is based on kindness and compassion. So that's enough. So I'm going to go on to, so sorry, introducing myself. I'm a midwife. I'm a practicing midwife. And with my daughter Anna, who is also a midwife, we own and run the Practicing Midwife Journal, which is part of All for Maternity. And we also have a student midwife journal. And we call ourselves Education with a Heart, because everything we do is based on kindness and compassion. So that's enough about me. What I want to do is introduce our very first speaker now. And I'm not going to go into great detail because you've got all about Pete in your conference program. You can, if you scroll down it, you can see that everybody's bios are there. So rather than spending time going through everyone's bios this morning, I'm just going to give a personal introduction. So to me, Pete's been a great friend. He's been someone who has kind of celebrated with me, alongside me very often at physical conferences. And he's always been someone who's come over and chatted to us. And we've really built up a good relationship with him. And I love seeing his antics on Instagram. I sound like I spend all my time there, but I do love seeing Pete's activities. Anyway, Pete is the founder of the wonderful charity Mummy Star, after the sad death of his wife Mare, which was in 2013. So go and read all about Pete's wonderful work and what Pete does and how he tries to give women all the normal choices in pregnancy, women that have cancer or diagnosed with cancer, and how he supports partners too. So thank you, Pete, and over to you now, and I'm looking forward to hearing you speak.
Super, thank you, Sheena. Steph, am I able to share screen from now?
Yes, you should be able to.
Super, cool, okay. Just bear with me 1 sec. Can you all see that?
Yes, I can see it, Pete.
Super, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good morning.
Open it as a PowerPoint and then slideshow view show or from beginning.
Yeah.
And then we're good.
Super.
Oh, F5.
Yeah, it's not slipping forward, so that's done. But can you see me scrolling through though there?
Yeah, Pete, if you go to slideshow at the top, is it not working?
Yeah, no, I do sometimes have this issue with this stuff, so don't worry.
Well, one good way at the bottom. Can you see it at the bottom or not? No, don't worry.
No. Can you see me all tinkering through screens there?
Yeah, we can see them all.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fine. So I'll just do it that way because I haven't got notes on the screen anyway. So super. Good morning, everybody. It's fab to be able to join this conference today. It was such a brilliant idea that like Sheena and Jackie have already covered in terms of what Steph's tried pulling together here with so many of us. So just thanks for getting us involved and giving us the opportunity to be part of it with everybody else. I'm going to just give a bit of an overview really of Mummy Star, but I'm going to try and tackle sort of 4 M's, if you like, in terms of both what we do, the aspect of maternity around sort of a cancer diagnosis, but then delve into the mental health side of things, and more specifically sort of where partners and sort of men and their role and how that plays a factor in a cancer diagnosis in and around pregnancy as well. So I'm going to be hopping around a little bit, but hopefully you'll kind of get where I'm going with all this. So just to start off with, Sheena's given a lovely introduction. Mummy Star is an organisation. We've been going 8 years now, and we were set up in 2013 after the death of my late wife Maya, to offer support to women who were diagnosed with a cancer diagnosis either during pregnancy or anywhere up to 12 months postpartum. Now, the support that we offer is open to any families, irrespective of the outcome of the cancer diagnosis or in terms of their pregnancy. So we find ourselves offering support to many families, sadly, who either lose their baby either during pregnancy or shortly postnatally as well, either for any reason due to the cancer diagnosis or for any other cause of that loss. Now, in terms of the actual situation itself, it's relatively rare in the grand scheme of things, but approximately 2 women a day in the UK and Ireland are diagnosed with cancer either in or around pregnancy. So while you might be looking at that in terms of birth stats in the UK as one in approximately 1,000 women, that's, if you're one of those women, you don't feel like a rare statistic. It feels like the ground has just, gone from under you, and it's hard to find, additional support and peer support. Never mind, sort of a broad understanding, in many cases from health professionals, because it is such an unusual situation. Now, us as an organisation, what we do is we offer a mix of support to families in this situation. So it ranges from peer support and being able to connect with other women in a similar situation. We offer some financial aid to families to be able to cover any of the many unseen costs that come in as a result of cancer. Sorry, I'm just been sent a message by Steph. So offering financial support at any of the unseen costs, whether it's travel, whether it's accommodation, where it's things to actually help people get get ready for baby's arrival, or it can be around things like memory making for families if they're sadly going to be in a situation where the cancer is terminal and their life limited. Now, increasingly, similar to to what Steph and Beyond Bea have been doing over the last couple of years, we've increasingly started doing education workshops as well. So we're working with universities all across the country to try and broaden the awareness around the cancer and pregnancy is something that midwives and student midwives will come across as they progress through their careers. And this has 2 advantages really. One, it starts a conversation about a subject that otherwise doesn't really come up within existing teaching, apart from it being covered in the sense of a complication that can happen during pregnancy. But it also offers the opportunity, I think, to reassure midwives that are going into practice, but equally midwives that are have been practicing for a number of years, that just because we see a cancer diagnosis happen in and around pregnancy, it doesn't and shouldn't mean that all the options that women should normally be given during pregnancy and how they plan their pregnancy, those things shouldn't necessarily be taken off the table purely because a cancer diagnosis intervenes at this time. So in terms of the actual cases, just in terms of cancer as a whole, the majority of women that we support, because the types of cancer that we see most commonly diagnosed in the UK, it is breast cancer. That we see most of, but equally we support a number of women who are diagnosed with either different forms of molar pregnancy, cervical cancer, blood and bowel cancers. And as many people don't, understand the scenario. There is often the default that there aren't necessarily options, to be treated for cancer during pregnancy, which there actually are. So if you've come across this situation for the first time, you have this juxtaposition of something that's is due to be beautiful and wonderful and celebratory, and we understandably treat pregnancy as sacred. So how you can intervene with a cancer and chemotherapy and radiotherapy and surgery and everything that goes with it, the two things just seem so opposed. So it's actually quite hard for many people to get their head around the fact that this situation does happen, even though we know that there's various different health complications that can come up during pregnancy or pre-exist when somebody becomes pregnant, but yet it isn't necessarily responded to in the same way that the cancer is. But it is part of the important part of this is increasing awareness around the fact that women do have options. The Embrace report in the last few years has reiterated this. We should look after women in the same way as if they hadn't been diagnosed with cancer, and look after them and provide them with midwifery-led support at every juncture, unless there's clinical reasons as to why we're not able to continue providing that. Going back to, I touched upon, the losses that, that our families do suffer, and, loss and grief in and around their pregnancy comes on multiple levels. I suppose the most tangible one, certainly in relation today, is when those families, do face the loss of their baby, for various different reasons. But one of the things that comes up within a cancer diagnosis quite often, again, this is, comes down to misunderstanding, is that women are sadly, have the option put in front of them more often than it's necessary, that they may have to give consideration to compassionate induction because of the nature of the cancer diagnosis. And this isn't an option that should necessarily be given to as many women as it is, because there are clinical, ways around, making that decision. But as many of you will know, that the minute you put that forward as an option potentially for somebody to consider, they will hear very little else, even if there are other outcomes, other treatment options, other surgeries that can be done, during and shortly after the pregnancy. That fear suddenly kicks in, and it's very, very difficult to backward step from that for families. So the way we encourage discussions around this is making sure that we're fully educated to, as much as we can be around the options that women should have, and that we don't put options to people unnecessarily until we're absolutely sure that clinically that is going to provide that woman with the best cancer outcome. And even then, if families decide that they would rather proceed with their pregnancy knowing that there is an elevated risk of potentially their cancer spreading, then so be it. And that is that family's choice, and we must and should respect that, rather than trying to shoehorn families into a situation where they have to give up a much wanted pregnancy. And with a cancer diagnosis, that could well be the last pregnancy that family are able to have, because we have we have loss of fertility in many cases, sadly, as a result of the diagnosis. So we have to be very, very careful how we package options up to families in this situation. Most importantly, though, I suppose the final point there is that a cancer diagnosis shouldn't be seen as automatically making a mum high risk in the typical sense. Is, again, it goes back to that point about there's no reason why we can't and shouldn't proceed with, many of the options that women do have when they're pregnant in any other circumstance. But I think, sadly, we find ourselves in a situation where a woman is, presents to us, she has a cancer diagnosis, and our response is a bit rabbit in the headlights. What do we do? Well, let's take the safest and least risky option possible. And that, unfortunately, means minimizing options for women. And, the reality is we can and should be, should be doing the opposite. And we have case studies, as long as our arm, that show us that, where this is possible and where the care is very open-ended, that, women do achieve and are able to have the pregnancy that they were looking forward to, despite, a diagnosis in the background. This next, I was researching for a conference a couple of years ago, and I found myself sort of writing down that, where there are crossovers between things that that people look forward to during pregnancy and the fears that they have around cancer, and in many cases it shows that there actually are there is crossover with both of these things in a bizarre way, in the sense of, just bear with me one sec. Sorry, I have a 3-year-old that's probably determined to try and get into the office. So yeah, we have quite a lot of crossover with pregnancy. Obviously, we we maybe rightly or wrongly associate it all the time with joy, with excitement, with with choices, with with growth. But for equally, for many women, we know that that can equally cause fear and anxiety, financial worry, uncertainty. It can draw them back to previous trauma potentially. There can be worries about safety. So I suppose we maybe falsely always associate joy with pregnancy when we don't really acknowledge that there can be there can be other impacts of that. Now, when we look at cancer by comparison, we know that people, worry about their mortality. They think about surgery, about loss of femininity when we're talking, when we're looking at it from a female perspective. What does their prognosis mean? What are the side effects? What impact is it going to have on their wider family, children? And then when you look at the crossover, some of those same factors come in as they do with pregnancy in general. So when we try and mash all of that together as cancer and pregnancy come with, you can see why we end up potentially with this perfect storm. And it's easy for people to lose sight of their basic principles around care for these women and how we should and can proceed, as and how we can, because the pregnancy ultimately can, without wanting to sound too flippant, we can, maintain that pregnancy as much as feasible and almost, kick cancer into the background. And that's ultimately what we do try and do with Mummy Star is try and make sure that the pregnancy is the pregnancy is the primary focus throughout all the care, rather than it being cancer and she happens to be pregnant in the background, if you like. So in terms of the actual going in a bit more depth into the maternity, we can normalize care around a complication like cancer in the same way that we can around other health conditions. And the key here is about informed choice. There are unfortunately too many women who are simply told what is going to happen to them in this kind of situation. And we've seen, the case studies, and we know from the feedback from so many of the women that we support, that where they are directly involved in their care, where things are explained to them, where they are asked what kind of, birth and pregnancy they had, that they were looking forward to, what their preferences were going to be, that is factored into the cancer, treatment and the cancer pathway. The women we support have far better outcomes, both from, from a pregnancy perspective in terms of did they get what they were hoping for, but also it's just the basics of compassion and knowing that they went through that pregnancy, they were listened to, and that everything that feasibly could have been done to maintain their pregnancy journey was done and is still being done postnatally as well. And this goes from, from everything, both from that initial booking and talking to women about what their feeding choices may or may not have been, and, and avoiding presumption. We don't, talking to women about, the availability of things like donor milk, about feeding choices, about whether having clarity about whether women can or cannot feed when they're going through, a cancer diagnosis, whether there's ways of delaying, feeding and expressing. We need to be informed when we're having these discussions, rather than, because I think it unnerves families when it's clear that we actually don't know what we're talking about. So providing options at an early juncture as well. So a woman who is, diagnosed at 20 weeks pregnant, let's make sure she knows that there might be an opportunity to look into donor milk. Let's not wait until she's a week before her due date before we start that process, because we know there can be obstacles and, and challenges in terms of funding. Same as goes for the actual, choice about how she wants to birth. Does a cancer diagnosis mean that a mother can't home birth? Does it mean that she can't have, have a water birth? No, it doesn't. But the reality is, unfortunately, in many trusts, because of the uncertainty around the subject, we go for the most risk averse option possible, and that often rules out those choices. And it's looking at the situation as a team. Multidisciplinary working is so key in this, but not just for the health professionals. It's involving the family, within that as well, and recognizing, their and respecting their choices, above anything else, rather than just being almost strong-armed by the cancer, and that being the deciding factor in all of our choices. I've touched on it already. Loss, it must be recognised in these situations. We sadly hear from too many women where they've had to end a pregnancy, or they may have had a stillbirth, not necessarily related to the cancer diagnosis, but they've had a stillbirth in the process of going through that cancer diagnosis, and that loss takes place. But because they're a cancer patient as well, that status seems to override everything in terms of all the loss that they're experiencing. And they were a pregnant woman 1 minute, and the next minute they've had that loss, but they're just a cancer patient, and that's their primary, that's their primary status within that pathway. And it gets lost, and the after effect of that, of it not being acknowledged properly, is massive. But to go through a cancer diagnosis, many of the women we support, they may have really positive cancer outcomes, but the long-term impact of that loss, first and foremost, but having not had that loss acknowledged properly, is can be absolutely catastrophic for many families. But equally, it isn't just the loss of a baby or the loss of a much wanted pregnancy. It is that loss of future fertility as well. They are, I would say, 9 times out of 10 the families that we support, this was or will have ended up being their final pregnancy because of subsequent surgeries that are to come, because of the impact of many cancer treatments on inducing early menopause in women. So and even just some of the cancer treatment options, certainly for things like cervical cancer, it sadly is the last opportunity that those families will have had to conceive. So we have grief and loss on a multitude of levels here, and it's absolutely vital that we provide all the support that we should in any other circumstance. Even if we imagine situations, if we didn't have a cancer diagnosis taking place, we should do all the things that we would do normally for any family who finds themselves in that situation, sadly. And likewise, for families who are, we see it more sadly in families who have to have a compassionate induction to provide themselves with a better cancer outcome, where it seems to just get sort of ridden roughshod over and kind of getting forgotten. Molar pregnancies are I'd say the worst cases within this, where it isn't really acknowledged at any point that woman was ever really pregnant. But as far as she sees herself, and certainly as far as we support those women, we support them as women who are experiencing loss. But they sadly slip through the net in so many ways. Follow her preference. If she says from the outset she really wants a water birth, even if she can't actually deliver and have a full water birth, let's have her in the water as long as we can feasibly do before we start sort of edging towards the parameters of the risk that's been identified within those situations. It just all goes back to a picture of, let's not rule out options just for the sake of ruling out options. We're in I'm part of a European project with partners in Italy, Spain, and Belgium over the last 12 months, and we've been looking at how maternity care for women in this situation differs across Europe. And from our perspective, even though our NHS is much we know it's wonderful, but it is so much maligned and so criticised so often. But yeah, our maternity care is exemplary in so many aspects. When we look at where women don't necessarily have the options in other parts of Europe. But our issue isn't about how we care. Ours is more, I think, about consistency and being safe in the knowledge that if we have one mother who wants to is being cared for and is going to deliver in one hospital setting, we want to know that she can receive the same full level of joined up care in a setting 50 miles down the road, 100 miles down the road, or even in that same setting if another woman goes into that hospital in 6 months' time. And this is still the issue. Again, not just in cancer situations, it crosses a number of boundaries in terms of consistency of care. But I think it's about knowledge and trying to encourage a situation where if you're not sure, sort of don't be afraid to ask. And I think that the reason I cite that is because I think it's maybe fair to say sometimes in the NHS there is a culture of not wanting to be the person that says I don't know. But when I revisit the care that we received as a family, which is essentially the foundation for Mummy Star and the care pathways we hope for women, when I've spoken to our obstetrician that looked after us years ago, the reason why we had such a rounded team approach and why we were involved with the MDT as a family was because the obstetrician had never seen a case like ours before. So openly admitted, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'll get everybody involved and, hopefully we'll work it out between us. That honesty, that candour was what led to ultimately a fantastic care model that ticked, every box for us as a family. Granted, the ultimate cancer outcome was a tragic one in terms of, Maya's death. But the fact was that our pregnancy went from being, totally world, tipped on its head, scared, uncertain, worried, to one of involvement, of choice, of compassion, of arguably almost felt more in touch with, with our baby in that pregnancy than we had in our previous one, because we had more opportunity to, to listen to him, to see him on screen, and it can really flip a situation, from seriously scary and uncertain to one of warmth and joy. Again, like I've said several times, despite the fact that you've had cancer intervene in that situation. Now, what is running alongside all of this all the time is the fact that these families, and this is irrespective of the cancer outcome, whether that mum is in a situation, I mean, we're always cautious about using words like cure, can be cured of cancer nowadays. It's more about, there being no evidence of disease, but we can sometimes get caught up in the joy of, you've had your treatment and you've had your surgery, and you're now, you're able to go in, you're in remission and you can look forward. But what we miss often is the impact of trauma and the mental health impact on families in this situation. And the easiest way for us to break this down, and how we talk to to health professionals and students about this, is that trauma isn't always, birth trauma isn't always, a physical trauma. It isn't, a postpartum hemorrhage, an emergency C-section, any manner of different physical challenges. In a situation like this, if you see it as, the minute a family hear the word cancer at any point within that pregnancy continuum, that has caused a trauma for that family, irrespective of the outcome, irrespective of whether she is cancer-free in 12 months' time, irrespective of whether that baby arrives safely and is healthy and well, and develops really well, and and everything else goes as we would hope it to go. There is still a rooted trauma for those families. They have heard that word cancer. They have feared at some stage during that pregnancy for their own life. They have feared for the life of of that baby, of that that pregnancy, and that is even before we look at what then subsequently happens. So that family may then go through the the worries of having to deliver anywhere up to 10 weeks early. Again, it's trauma upon trauma. That family might lose that pregnancy or that baby for any manner of different reasons during that pregnancy. Further trauma that that can occur. The bit that gets missed most often, though, within this is actually the postnatal impact. So we would, without having researched it to an nth degree, we can quite confidently say that postnatal depression and its associated signs and symptoms are really prevalent in our families, because whether they've been diagnosed in pregnancy or they get diagnosed postnatally, that period, that maternity period, that whole bonding time that we look forward to, and there's trepidation within it, but also there's a lot of joy. It is totally and utterly upended by a diagnosis happening in and around pregnancy. That bonding time is interrupted, those early days, that being able to be really up close and personal to the development of that baby and the little signs and things that they do, that is totally interrupted by huge levels of fatigue, side effects from chemotherapy, being hospitalized, possibly because of an early delivery, but more often than not hospitalized because of subsequent surgeries that are needed even after the actual cancer treatment has been given. So we have so many interruptions. Now, one of the things we can do to offset that is, the minute we know that family have been diagnosed, we start the perinatal planning then, not as and when she starts to show signs, but we have an awareness of it right at the earliest juncture possible, so that as and when things do come to the fore, and we can't force these things out of any family, they sadly they will happen at a natural time scale. But if we've planned ahead, we're far better placed to be able to respond in a far more timely manner, and we know that there is a real time, there's a high likelihood that the families will suffer these feelings. So whether it's one of the things that we commonly hear is guilt, sort of, I'm being a crap mum, I'm so lazy because I can't do anything with my baby. This is a woman who's been having chemo 3 days prior, is totally and utterly fatigued, is suffering all manner of side effects, can barely stay awake, but yet her first instinct is to criticize herself for not being a good mother because she's going through this. We see that, and the way we talk about that is, no, you're actually the total opposite. You're being an amazing mother. The fact that you can even, the fact that you've been able to go through this process, and you've still been able to to deliver this baby, or you're dealing with with the loss potentially that she's going through, as well as having to contend with cancer treatment. But it's vital. But again, this goes back to, I've touched on it already, it's another layer of grief, grieving that loss of normality, grieving that maternity period, grieving those, grieving that bonding that people would normally look forward to. And the thing again that we sometimes lose sight of here, and this is why I use the image here that I do, is it's not just about mum. This whole process, it's about mum and her partner as well, because he or she will have also gone through a process of trauma in terms of seeing their partner diagnosed, about hearing the word cancer, about worrying about what this might mean for them. Does this mean they'll be parenting on their own? Does this mean they'll be their partner will be sort of suffering the effects of this illness and this treatment for for years to come? Again, you grieve normality, you grieve looking after it and bringing up a baby together. You grieve doing that first walk into the park in the pram when you nervously think, do I want my baby out in the fresh air yet? All these things that so many of us take for granted, that so many of us look forward to, that that so many of us sadly grieve because we haven't ever had those opportunities. These are things that affect all parts of the family, and I think we need to adjust. I think we are doing it, and I think there's a lot of work being done to help us focus on seeing whole family impact in situations like this, but in pregnancy generally. But it all starts by not being afraid to ask the question, being able to check in with parents, being able to see how they both are. We do our postnatal visits to families, and we check, but how much time do we actually spend talking to her partner? We ask mum all the questions, and we ask her how she is, and do we ask her partner if if he or she is there, how they're feeling about everything? Do we ask them how have they got worries? I sadly, as a dad, I've been in that situation, even having experienced the loss that I have, having become a dad again since. And I remember having somebody sit in my lounge who knew all about Mummy Star as a charity, but actually didn't once ask me how I was in the midst of this. And as it turned out, I was actually working myself through a whole, mishmash of PTSD, having, relived an awful lot of things in another pregnancy and everything. We've got to be so mindful of the experiences that other people could have had, previously, whether it's a cancer situation, whether it's bereavement, whether it's, going into pregnancy with, with cardiac issues, epilepsy. Again, so much of this is so applicable to any number of different health conditions. Cancer is just the one that, that I and we focus on, is the one we know best. But like I said, I think there's an awful lot of work being done on this subject because of a lot of the work around from Mark Williams and Andy Myers and the whole "How Are You Dad" sort of movement in terms of trying to address postnatal depression and the impact of parenthood on new dads or new partners. In a situation like this, we need to be even more acute that fear of birth affects both parents in very, very different ways. So yeah, again, it's just a bit more really just in terms of there are an awful lot of preconceptions, and I talk about this. I know I sort of swing from talking about sort of the focus on mum and focusing on the pregnancy and normality, and then it comes to the other extreme of of focusing on men. But I think this is because of the natural journey that that personally that I've been through over the last few years, but also the things that we've become involved in, is that it is apparent. We don't necessarily always take men's or partners take on things into consideration when we're trying to shape how we care for people and how we see the impact. And even going back to something like the loss of a pregnancy or the loss of a baby. I've heard Chris Binney talk about this on a number of occasions, is that when we support families who've experienced the loss of any kind, at any stage during pregnancy or postnatally, how many times do we ask the dad how they feel, or how do we ask the partner how they feel? It's on one hand, I think, is the quote that I've heard Chris use on a number of occasions, and I can quite understand that, and it's that, again, it goes back to the fact that, you know, A, we need to check on both of them and make sure they're okay, because they can both grieve in different ways. You know, but it's also when you're going into a situation, say, for example, like a woman been diagnosed with cancer, do we pay attention to both of them at that situation? This could be her first experience. This could be the first time she's gone through pregnancy and that she's been diagnosed. Do we know what his previous pregnancy experience could be? Has he had some? You know, is he going into a new relationship where his previous pregnancy in a previous relationship was traumatic? Do we ask that question at booking? Do we ask, you know, those parents, you know, have they had previous pregnancies, and how were they for them? You know, I've met, you know, sort of professionals over the years where they've had situations like that, where a previous dad has lost his baby in a previous relationship and he's now pregnant with a new partner. But the process of being pregnant again for him is going to naturally bring up so much potentially untapped trauma. And this is precisely what happened, you know, to me when we went through a pregnancy, you know, 3.5 years ago. Was there was a lot of untapped trauma that was suddenly brought up by going through. You know, you reach stages, you reach different milestones that we're, you know, I think we're conditioned to think that certain milestones in pregnancy are safe. You know, we get to 12 weeks, oh great, we've got there. Well, you know, we should remain always cautious and alert throughout. You know, there is no magical you know, safe number, safe marker in pregnancy. All the work that, you know, of all the organizations involved in today highlights that at so many different levels. You know, but equally, we shouldn't attach a safe kind of time level to you know, to grief in that setting as well. Whether somebody has to make a decision about their pregnancy due to a cancer diagnosis at 8 weeks, or whether it's 20 weeks or it's 25 weeks, it doesn't matter. But, you know, loss is loss for, you know, for any family. We don't know, you know, what it's going to sort of draw out of them from, you know, from previous experience as well. So yeah, so the message there is just, you know, is please just, you know, talk to partners, you know, throughout, and make sure make sure they're involved, because it really does. I think information is so powerful. And you know, just going back to a more gentle example is going through antenatal classes a few years back, and I'm sitting in a room, and I was the only person there who was a parent already. Everybody else, it was a first baby for them. And when the subject was approached at the beginning about, you know, sort of how do everybody feel about, you know, home birth, and let's say 90% of the mums there all wanted a home birth, and 90% of the partners there didn't, because they were petrified about what that meant and what would it mean that they were physically delivering the baby on their own. And over the course of that session, because those partners firstly were able to feel like they could vocalize how they felt and where their worries and fears were, over the course of that day, at the end of it, actually 90% of the partners wanted to have a home birth, because they suddenly felt really confident about the process, and they could see how the warmth of your own environment could be, you know, just as safe and as reassuring as it can be when you're in a hospital ward with, you know, with the full confidence of all the staff around you. Bizarrely, in that example, after having seen the ward, for example, I think there was a significant shift in the number of the mums to be in terms of where they wanted to deliver. But it was just really interesting how you can alleviate fears, but it's about talking and making sure that people have avenues to to talk about their fears. And it's just key, you know, that we do that for partners just as equally as we do for families as well. Apologies there for the horrifically mustached picture of myself and Mark Williams, but to me it's always just, it really sort of exemplifies that sort of bond that the whole How Are You Dad movement has kind of has brought about. Because before I ever met Mark a few years ago, I never even recognized that, you know, as a parent, having been through the experience that I have, that I even did suffer from trauma. And then it was actually the process of listening to Mark that really, you know, sort of helped me recognize that I had, you know, sort of a lot of things that, you know, I'd really not dealt with in that. So he's sort of somebody that I'm always, you know, sort of really grateful for, you know, sort of to helps me sort of actually openly talk and work through that process, but, you know, to the benefit hopefully of others over time as well. So that's me kind of coming to a close, really. They're my 4 M's, if you like. So Mummy Star and, you know, maternity, how there's so much wrapped up in terms of the different aspects of mental health along that journey. You know, sort of, and, you know, within all that is, you know, is making sure that we focus on partners and on men in this situation, because we just don't talk. you know, as much as we all hope we would. So, you know, we need to coax along the way, if you like, without wanting to, you know, sound like I'm patronising all men. But you know, I can almost say that, you know, with a bit flippantly, having been one of those guys that didn't, and you know, it took a while too. So thank you all very much for listening. I don't know whether if anybody has any questions or anything, my contact details are here. If anybody wants to take that, if you just either info at, or if you just replace it to pete@mummystar.org. If anybody has any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask, don't hesitate to email. As you've probably gathered from the presentation, there isn't any subject around what, you know, I have experienced within my family that I'm not prepared to talk about. Everything is very, very open. And likewise, in terms of all the work we do at Mummy Star, if you pop onto our website, there's, you know, there's a ream of information. It's all just been relaunched in the last few months, so it's much fresher. There's far more, you know, wealth of information and resources on there now than there's ever been before. So please, by all means, just, you know, just get in touch, and, you know, we'll help wherever we can, whether it's, you know, students or health professionals alike. We work and want to work with everybody that we can. So thank you very much for listening. I'll hand back over to Sheena and Jackie.
Oh, thank you, Pete. Honestly, every time I hear you, I hear something else, and I always feel totally inspired and in awe of your humble, the way you know, your humility just kind of comes through, but your raw experience is really important for us to hear. So thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure.
And I'm sorry that I spoke about your lovely wife. I said her name was wrong. It's Miles.
Oh, don't worry.
And I said, so I'm sorry about that. Celtic names always get me. And we've got some questions for you now, Pete, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah.
There's one question for Pete. You mentioned providing education for midwives and student midwives and ensuring the woman has midwifery-led care. Have you any opportunities to lead education for the obstetric team, i.e. consultants and anaesthetists, for example?
We did some work with Health Network Northwest before Christmas in terms of actually delivering a session to trainee obstetricians for the first time. So we're hoping that now that we've started that process, it'll continue. And we're working with Cancer Gateway as well to provide some learning modules that will be accessible both for GPs, but also for anybody within you know, within any realm of health, whether it's obstetric, whether it's oncology. You know, to ensure that same sort of learning, and again, it's you know, it's a lot of it is anecdotal learning based on the, you know, all the families that we've supported over the years, but it is increasing into different disciplines more and more. I think the reason we have focused historically so much on midwifery is because we've just, you know, we've always found midwives to be the glue that sort of bring both oncology and obstetric care together in these kind of situations. So if we can get all the midwives with a really broad, not an expert knowledge, because you can't be an expert in this situation, I don't think. It's about, you know, reinforcing the compassionate side of it. But it's through that we're being able to reach out to the other disciplines, because we're, you know, like I said, we're just trying to educate people on, first and foremost, the fact that this can and does happen, because there is just still so much, there's such a lack of knowledge out there still. But yeah, it's been really encouraging despite the lockdown over the last 12 months. We've actually forged more links than we actually had before in regards to other disciplines.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pete. That's a really good answer. And another question, when offering support for current or previous trauma, is the support you offer solely from Mummy Star, or do you link up with other services, maybe suggest things such as self-referral to counselling services for longer term help? Yeah,
no, it's everything. I mean, we don't ever pertain to be, you know, sort of all singing, all dancing. We can provide everything, and we're always, whether it's, you know, if we have a family get in touch with us, for example, where they've experienced a loss, we will provide them with everything we can. But the first thing we do is you know, make sure they're aware of where they can get, you know, far more tailored support because of the specific trauma they face. So it could be, you know, Beyond Bea, it could be, you know, like I was touched on earlier about the women who experience molar pregnancies. They don't by default are made aware of things like miscarriage association, for example. So we find ourselves facilitating that, and we add to that that range of services, and that we support all all the time. And in the same way, the referral process that we have, it's not an onerous one. It literally is a pick up the phone or email us, and we'll just work through with each different organisation sort of how we could best provide support and dovetail with the existing support. So like Click Sargent, Teenage Cancer Trust, the Christie, refer to us on a regular basis, but likewise we often will bounce sort of women to them to ensure that they're getting all the support that they may not have been aware of beforehand if they've come to us as the first port of call. And likewise, for us, our specialism, if you like, is the situation itself. It isn't the specific cancer. So, we do an awful lot of work with the likes of Joe's Cervical Cancer Trust because we're not experts in cervical cancer. They are. But likewise, they will refer to us because we understand the impact around the pregnancy. And, as an example, like the Coronation Street storyline a few years ago, that was done in tandem with them because they know about the surgeries and the treatments, and we know about the interruption of the pregnancy. And that cross-working for us, it's one of the things that we've really built ourselves upon over the years, because we find we learn, so much by working in that way.
Thank you, Pete. Yeah, I mean, none of us can do things on our own, can we? But it's great that you've got all those links, and I'm sure that they trust you implicitly because of your approach, and the way you do your work is incredible. I can't tell you how many messages you've got. There's literally scores of messages of support. Thank you for a very inspiring and educational talk, Pete. What a great charity. As always, inspirational, insightful, much to reflect on. Thank you, Pete. You've given me a lot to think about. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. They're all coming through. Absolutely tons of them. I mean, the messages are just flooding in. Such a valuable discussion, Pete. Pete attended our society when I was a first year. I'm now a third year, and I found his session to be extremely valuable. Thank you so much, Pete. I've seen you speak before, but you always inspire me to make things better and to remember the partner within any birth experience, particularly if there's been a traumatic event. I'm sure you'll get lots of these comments sent to you from Steph, but they are incredible. Now, one more question, just before we stop. It says, you mentioned about discussing Dad's previous history regarding loss of partner or children. How would you feel the best approach of this would be, as it could be quite difficult discussion for Dad to open up whilst being beside his current partner and would hate to upset anyone?
Okay, I'll give you the example of what happened to us, and that I think will paint it quite starkly. So when Nick and I, for example, went into our booking appointment in 2018, the question was asked, have you got any children already? And Nick responded, we have 2 children already, but this is my first pregnancy. Now, I would have assumed that would be the door opening to say, oh, okay, tell us about your family. And what I was greeted with instead was, oh, so they live with you. And that was quite alarming, to think, oh, right, okay, so is there, yes, the children live with me and they're well clothed and they're fed and they're looked after. It's like, yes, I'm a capable parent. That to me was a good opening to say quite compassionately, oh, can you tell us about your family then? And I wouldn't have necessarily, and I can only speak on my behalf, I wouldn't have necessarily given war and peace to that midwife and given her the full rundown of everything that happened. I simply would have said, yes, I lost my late wife to cancer, quite soon postnatally. And to me, that was probably all that would have been needed. And she or he would have immediately put a note on the top of our midwifery notes to say bereavement, loss after pregnancy, and that would have been it for the rest of the. Somebody would have known every time they looked at our notes there was something to be aware of. But on the other hand, if I had just said, I don't really want to talk about it, again, that to me would have been a red flag as a health professional to say there is something there. It may come out at a different juncture along this journey, but we need to be aware that there's clearly something that he or she is not comfortable with talking about. And it obviously there is a dormant issue there. I think it's making sure that there is a channel in the first place. I think if when we I've been fortunate enough to be a dad 3 times, and I've been through 3 different booking appointments, 3 very, very different pregnancies in terms of their outcome, in terms of the how everything went. But each time it's always been it's not been me. I've not been asked a single question directly, and I think that is maybe part of the issue. Is we address all the questions to the woman sitting in front of us, and I'm not saying the partner is always there, so we need to take that into account. But if the partner is there, I think we do need to think about how we actually phrase the questions to be able to draw their input into it. Like, how are you feeling about pregnancy? Is there particular things that you're looking forward to, or that you're a bit nervous about? I think the work of Dad Matters is doing a lot of work in addressing this, because it is opening up that conversation about what is this actually like. I mean, granted, it's specifically for dads rather than partners in the wider context, but I think it's part of the start of a process, to make sure that, that the partners going into a pregnancy know that this is about them as well as mum. It's not just about mum. And I think that is really, really key. Like many guys, I never wanted fussing over. I never wanted somebody to pussyfoot around me because Maya had passed away, the last time I had experienced a pregnancy. But I think what would have been quite powerful in its impact is for somebody to have said, if you don't feel like comfortable talking about it, that's fine. But I think there's a difference between going from that position to just avoiding presumption that I was just a grumpy guy who just wasn't really wanting to engage in that appointment. And it could perhaps be seen as, actually, there's something there that we just, and I don't think that's on an amateur psychology level. I don't think you need to be a trained counsellor to see those signs. I think if somebody clearly clams up in front of you, I think that's something that's worthy of note. I do think the changes that have been brought about by all of Mark Williams and Andy Meyer's work are going to help in terms of the mental health screening for partners and everything. I think that will have a significant impact on this. But above and beyond that, I think there are more basic things that we can use in terms of our own intuition to open conversation.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we've got to consider as well in this conversation is same-sex couples, and
yeah.
Because it's not just, it might not be a dad, it might be another partner of same sex that we've got to it's always considering that partner, isn't it, and that wider. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Pete. Honestly, you've got, they keep coming in, amazing comments and really good points. So thank you for everything. Thank you for all the work you do, but also for coming this morning and sharing your insights with us. It's always great.
There you go.
Perfect. So shall I just start there now? Yeah, I'm all right.
Yeah,
start.
Go ahead, Bob, and we're looking forward to hearing you and seeing your slides. And thank you so much for joining us this morning.
No, it's an absolute honour. Thanks very much for inviting us, and I'm so pleased to be here, actually. I just thought I'd briefly run through, I've got on the slide there as a grandparent's story, really. That being is that obviously the focus when there's a stillbirth or a child loss, that everybody tends to, gather around the parents. And I wouldn't say that grandparents are particularly forgot about these days, because I keep shouting on about it. But, the loss that we feel as well is quite significant. And it really affects us quite badly. I'll just move this next one down, actually. So let's load in. So I just want to introduce you to Lewis Knight, actually. He was my first grandson. This is Lewis here. And in 2009, my daughter Kirsty was at second year at university and doing a business management degree. And she got me in the front room and she said, "Dad, I need to tell you something. I'm pregnant." And like every good dad, I went absolutely ballistic. I went mad. What you're doing, all your career's gone and everything, So, but I kind of got used to the idea. And at 20 weeks, Kirsty had her scan, and it was confirmed she was having a boy. She named him Lewis straight away. And of course, then I started making plans in my own head, really, And, I'm a big Sunderland fan, actually. And my daughter's partner, Michael, he's from that lot up the road, which we don't talk about. But he's kind of, I'd already made my decision. He was going to be coming to the match with his granddad, and I was so pleased that this was going to happen. Unfortunately, we got to about he was 38 weeks, actually, and we got to the stage where Kirsty thought she was going into labour. Unfortunately, the problem being is that those labour pains weren't labour pains. I think it was maybe the rejection. And Kirsty went to the hospital. I got a phone call saying, you know, Dad, you're going to be a granddad this afternoon for the first time. Massively excited. I got a phone call about 4 o'clock from my wife, who was absolutely screaming down the phone saying that he's died. And they'd gone into hospital, put the heart monitor on, and there was just nothing. And while we're moving into another machine, the same thing, nothing. And, you know, I think that was the start of the hardest 2 days of my life. And Kirsty came home with all, and we cuddled her, cuddled Lewis, and obviously we had to go back to the hospital 2 days later to go through the birth, which as a dad, I felt that was really, really difficult. For the first time in my life, I couldn't help my daughter. When she was little and she fell over and scratched her knee, I would, you know, rub it and kiss her and make her better. And, you know, when Lewis's heart had stopped in that room, Kirsty's words to our mum was, "Mum, please make him breathe, make him breathe." And we felt like we'd failed her because we couldn't help her. So we had to sort of make all those arrangements and go into the hospital. And these things that I'm telling you about now all become apparent because this is how the charity developed. And we took notes as I was going along, you know, and it was kind of, you'd go into we were in a normal delivery room. We could hear, you know, mum's birthing in the next room, baby's crying. And, you know, we just tried to protect my daughter, really. When he was born, it was a really surreal moment, actually, because people who've not lost a child would never, ever understand, I don't think, fully the impact it has on a family. And for me, it totally destroyed me. And when we were sitting in the delivery room, the midwife actually noticed that I wasn't doing too well, I don't think. And she just said, "Do you want to come outside?" And I was like, "What have I done?" You know, I was just sitting there, minding my own business. And she said, "Do you fancy having a cup of tea?" And I said, "You know, I'd like that." And we went into the staff room. She put the kettle on. She said, "Ask me anything you want." And I was like, "Have you made a mistake? Could he really be alive?" And she was saying, "No, we normally get that bit right." And I think, looking back, I think she realised I wasn't doing very well. And that midwife took me out of that situation because she knew my daughter was going to need me in an hour or so. So I was forever grateful for that. And I'll come on to that in a minute about midwives. And basically, we had to go through all the procedure. Lewis was born. He was beautiful. I got a chance to hold him. It became a really happy occasion, actually. You know, we cuddled him and all this sort of thing. And the midwife said to us, "Have you thought about taking Lewis home?" And I was like, "Are we allowed to do that?" And they said, yeah, that's your baby. You can do that if you want to. So we talked about it as a family. We decided that's what we'd like to do, and we took him home. And unfortunately, there was no cuddle cots then. This was back in 2009. They said, just open all the doors and windows, keep him as cold as you can. And even in those 4 hours that we had him, we could see that it was time to take him back to the hospital. We just got him in the car seat. And as I said earlier before, I'm a Sunderland fan, and I said to my daughter, you know, can I take him to the stadium I like? Because I promised to take him. She said, yeah, of course you can. And I put him in the car seat, and I broke my heart. I cried all the way to the football ground, and got there, and I was getting him out the car, and my wife was saying, you know, do you want me to come with you? And I was like, well, no, you don't normally come to the match with us. It's just me and him. And I sat outside the main entrance with him. I told him how rubbish we were, but I didn't realise at that time I was actually creating a memory that nobody would ever take away from me, ever. And that stays with me today. And it was ironic that we started a charity that promotes memories. And, you know, at the time I didn't realise what was going on. So, of course, we took him back to the hospital, and leaving him was the hardest part. And, you know, we came out of the room and with an empty car seat. And could you believe it? A family in front of us was leaving with the teddy bears and the balloons, and we just froze. And then we turned to look the other way, and there was another family coming out behind us, exactly the same, who was sandwiched between the two, and we had to tell the family behind, you know, could you just give us a second? They thought we had two heads or something like that. They didn't realise what was going on. And I think these are small attention to details that we're trying to change, you know, to make sure these things don't happen to families, you know, both now and in the future. Of course, then we had to create, you know, organise a funeral as well, which nobody should have to do that. You know, natural progression is that, you know, we would go to funerals for our grandparents, and then maybe our parents, and then it's our turn, and then the children. Shouldn't be the other way around. How did I feel about it? I was devastated. No, probably worse than that, but I just don't think there's a word in the English dictionary will tell you how bad I felt. It just totally destroyed me. Where the funeral is concerned, my wife would say, can you help us with this? And would you choose that? And I just couldn't. I just put my coat on and I used to walk. I couldn't speak. For 2 weeks, I just totally shut down. And I really struggled with that. So we always have to recognise, you know, bereaved families' mental health and how they're doing at that particular time, because it's a real tough time for them. And I can't put into words how a family really feels. I'm just going to try and move this down. See which comes on here. So when we were in hospital, we were unfortunately given very little. We had a smudged handprint of Lewis's hand and a little poly bag with a lot of hair in. We actually decided that we were going to do a clear impression kit of Lewis's hands and feet, and that was before he died. We already had them to do this. So once we got home, we decided that we were going to do something. It was really to get my daughter on the straight and narrow. I was frightened that she would go down a dark road. And I just said, let's give the hospital something back. What do you think we can do? And she said, I'd like to create something that all mums can have. I think all mums should have a clear cast. And we just put everything together. Initially.
Right, let's get you washed.
All right. So let's carry on.
Yes, yeah. Of course you can carry on, Bob. Sorry, can everybody just keep their microphones muted? That would be really great. Thank you. Sorry, Bob.
It's all right, it's no problem.
Carry on. Thank you.
So we decided we'd donate 10 memory boxes to Sunderland Royal Hospital, which is what we did as a one-off. And then the Queen Elizabeth at Gateshead asked us if we'd do another 10, and we did that as well. And then I think it was the Pinderfields Hospital in West Yorkshire asked us to do them. So we thought, gosh, there's something in this. You know, there's a need here, I think. And, you know, if we advance now to where we are today, the charity actually provides now memory boxes to 200 hospitals and hospices right across the United Kingdom. Sometimes further afield, we have our boxes in Cyprus with the armed forces. We're kind of, it's kind of developed something that we're covering. I think it's maybe 600, 700, 800 units now within that. So we obviously supply delivery suite, but obviously neonatal now, PICU, oncology and adult oncology as well, intensive care units, mortuary departments. So right across the hospital, we cover all those areas. I think we do about 9 different memory boxes now. I've got a little list here, so I can just remind myself actually, but we've got, we do twin boxes as well. I think our memory boxes are probably only memory box that is gender specific as well. So we'll do boxes for boys, for girls, and we also have a universal box for either unknowns or to just, you know, if you do run out of boys and girls, then you can use the sort of the universal one. We do a wooden box actually, which we were asked to do for older children. And this is a really lovely box because we can use this for adult oncology as well, and it helps the family. If for example, a mum or dad is terminally ill, they could sit with their children and decorate this wooden box. And then what we always inspire them to do is put maybe an 18th birthday card in, or you know, a wedding card for the future. So when that those milestones come around, then they can open the memory box and take those those milestone things out for them as well. So it's a big help. We also do a new pack actually, which we only launched last year, is for Muslim families, just to cover their culture as well. There were certain items in the memory box that maybe wasn't appropriate for their faith, so we try to develop that for them. We also do an early miscarriage box. So an early miscarriage box is obviously people, a lot of mums who've had a miscarriage sometimes feel that they've been robbed, that people didn't realise that, you know, accept that they were really pregnant and they had a child, when this isn't obviously the case. And we're just about to launch in the next week or so. We were asked to do a paramedic kit, and it's very similar. It's just a smaller version of a memory box. This was because a paramedic that was attending an incident in London where there was a tragic accident, and the parents had to leave with the other children that had been injured, but the child that had died had to stay with a paramedic, and he felt that that child had nothing, and he wanted to give them a comforter and this, that, and the other. So they're going to go in all those cars now. So, you know, when the rapid response does go to a tragic event, they're able to do something with the child. Within the memory box, the items that go in there, they're massively important. A memory box costs the charity around about £30 to make. And we have a place in Sunderland, a factory unit now. So we encourage everybody to come in now these days. Obviously not with COVID, but when we get over that, we have healthcare professionals, we have mums and dads who've lost, and they'll come and sit and make all the handmade items that go inside these memory boxes. Within the memory box, we have 2 teddy bears. And the reason being for that, as I said earlier on, I'm a Sunderland fan, and I gave Lewis a Sunderland teddy bear. And when it was time to say goodbye, I literally could smell him on that teddy bear. And I thought, I need to keep that. And I went to the support shop and I bought him another one. So he had one, and Grandad Bob had one. And so he had his for his journey, and I've got mine, type of thing. And that's what we'd always encourage. So when baby's born, you know, could you put one with baby and one with mum and dad, and then just swap them over when it's time to say goodbye. Massively powerful. We also have a Guess How Much I Love You book in there. So it's an iconic bedtime stories. So I guess when you've lost a child, you're in the fog and you've got this trauma going on. You can't really think for yourself. And I think the memory box actually inspires you to create memories, because we've only got one go at this. It's not a rehearsal. We'll have to get it right the first time. And I think if we treat families who lost a child just like you would treat anybody else, you know, call the baby by their name, you know, give them a cuddle, tell them how beautiful they are, but encourage them to read bedtime stories like you would normally do, because they'll carry that for the rest of their life. Take photographs as well, of course. I mean, we provide an SD card in there that can go into a camera or into a mobile phone, so they can capture their images on that. Plus, we've got the clear plastic that I spoke about earlier. That is our treasured possession at home here. It sits by our bedside, and we've got Lewis's hands and feet in there. You can literally feel your fingers around all these little veins in his hands, and that it's our treasured possession. Within that, we have inkless wipe kits. I don't know if you're familiar with those. Just a sensitized paper. In the old days, you used to paint baby's hand with a bit of ink on and press it on the paper. This time, it's just a baby wipe type cloth, and it reacts against the paper and creates a perfect image. I did speak to a dad once before, and he came to see me, and he opened the top of his shirt, and he had a couple of hands on his chest, and he'd had that tattooed on there, and he said, that's not just any hands, that is my son's hands. And that was through that inkless wipe kit. And he said, my son was cremated and actually had some of his ashes mixed in with the ink. So he says, I feel like he's here with me all the time. And, you know, I think that's such a lovely thing, although I'm not into tattoos myself, but I think it's a really lovely thing that the memory box was allowed for him to create that memory in himself. We also have a card from Kirsty, which basically just tells you you're not alone. As we know, child loss is very, very common. I didn't think it was at the time, and I was horrified to find out how many children and babies are dying on a daily basis, really. We'll have a baby blanket in there. We also introduced the heart in the hand keyring, which just a little keyring. You just pop the heart out, and the heart goes in the baby's hand, and you have the keyring with the missing item. Forget-me-not seeds, acknowledgement of life certificates. Again, that goes into the early miscarriages box as well, just to show you that that baby really did exist. Do scan wallets, a wisp of hair box, and POC cards as well. Just recently, we actually were asked to provide boxes for families affected by COVID as well. And that put a massive pressure on the charity, actually. But we developed the box that we had, and within that box, there's just a simple handmade card in there. And I didn't realize the significance of that. But what we found was that, as we know, at the height of the pandemic, families were literally taking a loved one to maybe accident emergency, and that might be the last time they ever see them. And what the staff were doing was taking our memory box, taking the card and writing their last words. And I think to put that in the memory box and then give that to the family, you know, that's huge. That was huge. We also have some knitted hearts that go in there these days now. And what we did was we wanted to try and engage people who wanted to come together to help the NHS at the time. And obviously we've got a lot of elderly supporters really, and they wanted to do something, but they were locked up at home. They couldn't come out. So they started knitting all these padded hearts for us and sending them down, and we would just introduce those into the boxes as well. So we did a bit of that. So that covers kind of the memory boxes that we provide. We do about 1,500 memory boxes per month from our place in Sunderland. We provide these free of charge. There's no charge whatsoever. In fact, actually, I should really say the charity doesn't charge for anything. It just goes against the grain for us to do that. So that's what we do with the memory boxes. What's the next one? Yeah, so I don't know if this will work or not, but my daughter Kirsty was named I think it was 2018 as in the top 100 most inspiring women in the world, which was a huge accolade, really. I don't think she realised the significance of it. But the BBC came and did a story, like a little video on that. And I'm going to try and play this for you, but I don't know if it will work.
Bob, turn your sound up on your computer.
And sound won't work unless you click the button to allow it.
Do you want to start it again, Bob?
Yeah.
If you just put it to the beginning.
So Bob, you'll need to close your screen and reopen it.
Oh.
So you need to go to the top of the page and it'll say end share screen.
Stop share.
Yeah, do that. Then do the same as you did to begin with, where you shared your screen.
Yeah.
And before you click on the presentation, but it'll say share computer sound. And
share
then
sound, yeah.
and it'll let you do it, but you'll have to just go back to the same slide again.
Apologies for that, everybody.
I think someone's got their microphone on. I wonder if everybody could turn their microphones off, please. Thank you.
All right, shall we try this again?
He was absolutely gorgeous, little button nose, jet black hair. We didn't see the colour of his eyes. He was just tiny and gorgeous. He was perfect little baby, and you would just think he was sleeping.
At 38 weeks pregnant, Kirsty gave birth to her son Lewis. She already knew his heart had stopped beating.
Unless you experience a stillbirth or a miscarriage, you can't understand the pain and the grief. It's not like losing a grandparent or a parent. You expect that in life, you know, your elders will die. You don't expect to have a funeral for your child.
In that place of all-consuming grief, many of us would shut the door, hide away, but Kirsty did the opposite.
Are you okay, Bob?
I am, but it's just stopped.
Oh, sometimes it's something to do with the Wi-Fi that it does that. Do you want
Right.
to try again?
Can do.
We've got time, so don't
Have we?
worry. Yeah,
Right.
we have. So don't worry, just take your time and just try and do what Steph said before, just try and do it again.
Right.
It's honestly, it's just so important, and you've got the most amazing comments coming up, and so much support for this. So we're just really patient and we're just waiting. Honestly, do you need any help?
I don't know how to get back to where I was before, because it's not showing, you know, the like log out type of thing to get back in.
Well, do you know where it says share screen at the top, where it says, you've stopped that, if you go to the bottom where it says share screen?
I think I've done it. Let's have a look, try again. Apologies, everybody.
No, don't say sorry, it's absolutely fine. Honestly, we're all in the same boat, so please don't worry. I think if you go to your last slide, it's on, oh, it's there, is it? That's great. So go to the bottom before you start playing.
Yes.
It. Great, thank you, Bob. It's technology. It's just so, honestly, it's just like this for everybody.
I'm 54. I shouldn't be doing technology.
Never mind. You're younger than me.
Let's try this here.
It'll come, Bob. I think it's just, it just is a little bit slow, but it'll come.
He was absolutely gorgeous, little button nose, jet black hair. We didn't see the colour of his eyes. He was just tiny and just gorgeous. He was perfect little baby, and you would just think he was sleeping.
At 38 weeks pregnant, Kirsty gave birth to her son Lewis. She already knew his heart had stopped beating.
Unless you experience a stillbirth or a miscarriage, you can't understand the pain and the grief. It's not like losing a grandparent or a parent. You expect that in life, you know, your elders will die. You don't expect to have a funeral for your child.
In that place of all-consuming grief, many of us would shut the door, hide away, but Kirsty did the opposite. She began making memory boxes to give support to other families experiencing loss.
So to pack the box, we're going to get all the items inside. So inside this one, we're going to have our clay cast, which, as you know, is just to capture the baby's hands and footprints. The memory boxes let people know that they're not alone. A lot of hospitals will offer the memory box as soon as the parents find out baby's died. Some will give the memory boxes once baby's been born. The boxes have been described as a cuddle at the worst time in their life, and just help them create as many memories as they can.
Paula Parnaby knows how precious those memories are. She nominated Kirsty as her Angel of the North after her daughter Poppy was stillborn.
When we were there in hospital, one of the midwives brought in this little lemon box. We had no idea what it was. She brought it over and we looked through it, and it was just amazing to be able to make these memories that you would never, ever have dreamed of getting.
Over the last 9 years, the For Lewis charity has supplied boxes to more than 670 hospitals. They've been used by the police and army too. But Kirsty and her team haven't stopped at memory boxes.
We supply cuddle cots, which is basically a mobile mortuary that parents can take baby home and spend some time with them. We've supplied over 230 of them. And we also offer training to midwives and nurses based around bereavement to help improve the care that's given and give them that better knowledge of how to care.
Doesn't like it, does it?
I'm
I think
sorry.
it's
I'm sorry.
struggling
It's all right.
because of the amount of participants. It's a lot to share on a video, unfortunately.
It was nearly finished there anyway, I think. So
We got a really good flavour of what's going on, you know, an insight into the amazing work that you're doing. Goodness me.
let's have a look here. So I'll just get back. Oh, that's not the wrong one, is it? Sorry.
Don't be sorry, Bob. Please don't be sorry, honestly. It's absolutely fine.
How do I do this? Where do I go from here?
Yeah, so go back into share screen, and I think you opened the wrong presentation, but that's easily done, because if you've got it open on your desktop, it shows up.
It's disappeared, hasn't it?
Whilst you're looking, Bob, I just want to tell you that you're getting absolutely tons of supportive comments coming up on the right-hand side.
Bless them.
It's really inspirational. They're just such amazing comments. So if you find your,
I've got it, but it's just getting it to load up.
That's right. Take your time. Okay. Whilst
so what I will say, sorry.
Go on. No, carry on, Bob. You carry on.
I was just going to say, while this is thinking about what it's doing, what we have done, we've managed to create obviously special relationships within the NHS with midwives and nurses and things like that. So we kind of sort of talk to them about what's needed, what you guys need to make the service a better service. Well, I'll just get this away now so we can get back to where we were. So we were asked to provide things like, so I think now you can take baby home if you have a miscarriage, if you want to bury baby at home. And I think a lot of the people, mums and dads, and they want to take the baby home, maybe bury them at home in the garden, or maybe they've had a previous loss where they wanted to maybe bury them with a baby that they already have at a graveside type of thing. So, but they didn't have any receptacles to take the baby home from, for want of a better word. So we developed caskets basically that we make in house, and they come in 3 different sizes. You can have a look on our website to have a look at those things, but they're, even the smallest boxes, literally tiny. And Tracy, my wife, she's a seamstress, so she'll make all the small items that go inside there. Just pack up where we are.
Is it not opening up, Bob?
Yeah, I think it's coming on now. So.
Oh, great.
I think so. Do you know what? Oops. Yeah. It's just taking its time. So you heard Kirsty there mention about cuddle cots as well. You might have got. The charities donated in excess of 300 cuddle cots now right across the United Kingdom. As you know, they're quite expensive, these things. I think they're perhaps maybe £1,500–1,600 each, these things. But again, a vital piece of equipment. We've got 3 of these actually that we have in the factory, that we would actually go to parents' homes if need be, if they wanted to take the baby home. We did that quite a bit over Christmas actually, and we had a situation where we delivered at the hospital, and they sent out with a family who went home, and then the family got in touch with us saying the cuddle cot's not working properly. And it was a real honour actually, because I went down there to try and get it working for them, and we got it working, and mum's sitting there with our baby in her arms, and for the first time since Lewis, she said, "Would you like to give him a cuddle?" And it was an absolute honour. It felt like the most natural thing in the world, and I'll never forget that moment actually. So a stranger who's just handed a baby over for me to give her a cuddle, it was immense. So I'm forever grateful for that. So we do the cuddle cots, and we also do the cuddle blankets as well, which are a bit more expensive, but they're for older children. So we're one of FlexMode's biggest, well, probably their biggest customer, I think. So that's the cuddle cots that we do. And if you guys need any more information, just let me know, and we'll try and help you out with the cuddle cots as well. This is Laura, actually. This is something I really wanted to do for a long, long time. And Laura was a bereaved mum. She raised money for...
We can't actually see your screen.
All right.
So I think, well, I think it's because you probably can see it. It's not sharing properly. It's actually just showing your desktop with all your files on.
Okay.
So maybe if you just close your screen again, you come out of sharing your screen, Bob, again.
Yeah.
And then let's try again. So
it would have to be me, wouldn't it?
No, it's honestly, it's just, I'm just going to put my face on for a minute, then I can see you. There we are. Just, it's really, this is really happens a lot. So it's not your fault, it's just technology.
Is that any better?
There we are. Yeah, there's Laura. We can see Laura now.
Perfect. Perfect. So this is Laura. She lost her child, actually, and she supported the charity. And I saw on Facebook that she's getting a place at Teesside University as a midwife. So I called her and I just said, you know, is your remit to become a bereavement midwife perhaps in the future? And she said, well, you know, I'd love to do that. Obviously, until I put myself in a position, I don't know how I'd be able to deal with that. But she said, I'd love to do that. And I said, well, look, how about if we sponsor you for Lewis midwife, and we'll pay for your university fees and all the training that you require to get you there. And I'm quite thankful that she's only maybe 4 or 5 months away now from qualifying. She's on her last year. And I know Jackie met, I think if you remember, Jackie, you met her down there at one time at one of the charity balls, and she
did.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
and she took a lot away from that, I think, as well. You know, it empowered her really. So she's doing really, really well. So we're very, very proud of that. And of course, when Laura's finished, we've got, I think, maybe another one lined up, I think, after that. So we're looking forward to Laura getting across the line. Let's have a look, see if this will work again. It seems to have fallen, doesn't it? Should I just press on?
Bob, if you use your on your laptop, on your computer, if you use your arrows to go forward, if you're wanting to go to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. It doesn't want to know.
Do you want to carry on without your slides?
No, just carry on. I'll just carry on.
Yeah, just carry on, because we're running a little bit late. So, but it's fine because if you know, you might have some questions. But if you just want to talk now, that would be 100%. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. So we also get involved with study days as well. We're doing quite a bit with Steph as well at Beyond Bea. We're obviously very conscious that training is massively important. So we've got to just make sure that everybody's getting the right information. So we're trying to do a bit of that. We also I think you touched on it earlier, Sheena. We were asked about getting involved with the midwifery forum, and I think there's maybe 200 members on there of bereavement midwives, and it's an absolutely fantastic thing. Really, we'll meet every four times a year, I think, doing it all on Zoom and Teams at the moment. We'll get guest speakers in, a bit like today, really. But I think generally we'll have an open email as well. So if you have a question, you can put it on there. You'll get 200 answers, which is brilliant. So it's all the support there. It's about best practice. So that really works well as well, you know. So we're very, very proud of that. As a charity, obviously our focus has always been on bereavement, bereaved parents. However, I have sort of in time realized that, you know, midwives need a hand as well. And if we can help them with that, that side of it, then we're more than happy to do that as well. I think that might be about it. Actually, I think we'll run a bit of shorter time, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But I would just like to say thank you very much for listening to us. But just before I do go, is all you health professionals out there, I just want to say I think you're absolutely amazing. I used to get annoyed about clap for carers on a Thursday because I've always known you were brilliant, and I don't know why it's taken that for the whole country to realise that. So I just want everybody to keep at it. And you know, from my point of view, from a grandparent's point of view, thank you very much for looking after families like us.
Oh, do you know, Bob, honestly, it's just it's just so heartbreaking but heartwarming listening to you, and listening to your close family, and what you've done is just totally phenomenal. And now you're getting absolutely tons of these inspiring messages. I just wish you could see them. They're coming up like at a rate of knot. There hasn't been, I haven't seen any questions, but just things like, you've changed the way I practice, you've influenced my life, you've changed the way my baby was cared for. There's just it's incredible, honestly, if you could see it. I'm sure that Steph will be sharing these comments with you, because they're just off the scale. So what you've talked to us about this morning is not only inspirational, but it's just like, it's phenomenal, and we're just indebted to you. And I know I've heard you speak in person and seen the work that you're doing. So I'd love to stay in touch with you and maybe do some other things with you as well. But thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks for listening to us.
And just, I'm sorry. Hello again. I hope you've had a nice little break and reflected a little bit on what we've been hearing this morning. Goodness me. We're going to continue now with wonderful Stephanie Wild. Stephanie, who's the founder of Beyond Bea. And I've already said once when Jackie and I started this morning that I was totally in awe of Stephanie, and it's because sometimes we see individual organisations kind of working against each other and vying for attention and competition. And with Stephanie, she just doesn't do that. She just lifts everybody up with her. She brings everyone alongside her, and she gives everyone opportunities. And so she does the exact opposite. And it doesn't go unnoticed by certainly me. It just makes me feel really proud to collaborate with her and to know her and to be a friend. So thank you for all you do, Steph, not just in sort of doing the wonderful work you do around your beautiful charity, but also helping all the other charities as well. And today is a testament to that. So we're looking forward to hearing from you now, and sort of thinking all the time about little Beatrice, who was born in 2017. So thank you. I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you, Sheena. Hi everybody. So this is really lovely. It's actually our largest event that we've done so far. So it's really lovely to have everyone here, really. So yeah, as you know, I'm from Beyond Bea Charity, and I'm Steph, and I'm a mum, but I don't get to work in the way that many mums do. So what I do is quite different in that the way that I care for my baby is very different to that of most people. So I don't get the usual tucking my baby in at night. I don't get to take her to school. And so this is actually one of the only ways that I get to parent. I'm also a registered and practicing midwife, and I'm also the founder of the charity as well. So obviously baby loss is something that a lot of us know about, but sometimes the reality of it can not be that clear. And really with how common baby loss is worldwide, our actual descriptions and definitions of it vary quite considerably. And the World Health Organization definition of stillbirth, for example, is a baby that dies during pregnancy above 28 weeks gestation. And for the UK, that definition applies from 24 weeks. However, our definitions vary quite considerably internationally, because everybody's got very different kind of interventions that they can provide, the medical care that they're able to give. And so that can vary quite significantly. Whereas in the UK, we are obviously a very developed country. And so our definition becomes lessened to 24 weeks. We use Embrace statistics that they release to understand a little bit more about our baby deaths. And baby deaths are categorised by stillbirth and neonatal death, but they have started to recognise that we, as the UK, have actually started to intervene at an earlier gestation, typically more so now from about 22 weeks, and that will very much depend on the individual case. But they've now started to broaden those statistics a little bit more, so that they're widened, so we can see our viability age of 24 weeks, but also from 22 weeks. And obviously these statistics can be quite impactful in that is a lot of babies. And what we have to remember is that it goes far beyond being a baby. That is a family affected. It's not just a statistic that's written on paper. It's nurseries decorated and not slept in. It's clothes that have been bought and not worn. It's milestones that aren't met. It's weddings that'll never be planned. So when you see those statistics, please see it as that. It's more than just a number you get in your inbox or see on the news. And I think it's really difficult sometimes because we look at those statistics and yes, it's a lot, but also there's so many babies that don't get included in those, and that accounts for so many families as well. So it doesn't include babies that are born below 24 weeks gestation, and also babies that have died due to a termination for medical reason above 24 weeks. So that is so many babies and so many families that don't get included in that data. And it's then our job to make sure that every single family receives the same amount of dignity, care and respect, regardless of their gestation, regardless of their age, and regardless of their circumstance. So in terms of the UK, I kind of want to, it's a bit of a rhetorical question here really, but in terms of what is the bereavement framework for practice that's mandatory for health professionals in the UK. And it's something that I've looked at quite considerably. It's something that really underpins everything that I do. But in reality, there is very little. And I think this is why it becomes such an issue for many people, in that we don't know exactly what we should be doing because actually it's not really written down anywhere. So in terms of mandatory frameworks throughout every kind of underpinning guidance for nurses and midwives, for example, and also for training those nurses and midwives, throughout the whole of their mandatory information, so anything stipulated by the Nursing and Midwifery Council, for example, is all categorised in 4 sentences. And those 4 sentences basically only say bereavement care. Now, if it just says bereavement care, that leaves a lot of room for, well, what does that classify as? What underpins that bereavement care? What are the exact processes that I should know about? And actually, it leaves so much room for error, it leaves room for interpretation, and this is why it's not standardised across the country. However, there are various guidelines in place, but ultimately what we have to remember is a guideline is exactly that. It's a guide. And because it's a guide and it's not stipulated, it means that people don't necessarily conform to those standards. And so we have to work as individuals to advocate for better standards and advocate for that change to enable those to be something that does happen, as opposed to being something that's just a suggestion of how we provide that care. So Beyond Bea is a charity that was established in January 2018. And it was following the death of my daughter Bea in November 2017 that caused me to start the charity. And I always wanted to work in bereavement care. It was something that I always had a passion for, and I'd done a lot of work throughout my student years from qualifying, and it was always something that I aimed to work in. But what I found was that training was often really inaccessible. There was often inaccessibility in that it was it was only in certain parts of the UK. It was often really expensive, and as someone at the time who was a student, I found that really difficult, because you had to make a decision of, well, can I afford to do this, or do I pay for bereavement training, which shouldn't be a decision you have to make. And I also found that those that provided it weren't necessarily someone who'd ever worked clinically. So to apply it in context became quite difficult, because they wouldn't always have those answers or know how to apply that necessarily. And so we wanted to make sure that there was something that bridged that gap, really. There's lots of other things that we also do as part of the charity, and as we've grown, we've expanded quite considerably, and we've been around now for just over 3 years. So one of our key aims is raising awareness of baby loss, and through raising awareness of baby loss, a lot of the things that we do are things like social media information. We do radio appearances, television, TV, social media. We upload things to our websites, we do podcasts, and we will share a range of our experiences. And many of our trustees have also had a range of their own losses, so also share their own personal stories as well. We hold family events. Everything that we do is very much focused on that family at the core. And the reason that we do everything that we do really does focus on that family, because without that family, we wouldn't be here, and the things that we do are to help that family. And we like to remind those families that that's what we're here for. So every year we try and provide a couple of activities or events to enable families to be reminded that they're part of us, and also to give back to them. So we actually have our latest family event happening in this coming week, and we will hope to hold another one later in the year, and hopefully that might be a face-to-face one. We also have lots of fundraising, as all charities do. We need fundraising. Every single thing that we do is purely funded on donations and fundraising. We don't receive any regular funding, so every penny really makes a difference to us. I know that Sheena mentioned these at the beginning, and I think Jackie did as well, but we hold educational Instagram lives, so they're held on a Wednesday at 8 p.m. every week, and we try and kind of broaden the knowledge that people have, talk about the more taboo aspects of baby loss, which is a taboo within a taboo, really. And we try and talk about the things that maybe you wouldn't understand if you've not had that experience, or things you may not feel comfortable asking a question about. And we want to make sure that people have that opportunity to just broaden that knowledge, really, and just have a better understanding about things that you may not necessarily always be able to easily find about through a textbook. There's lots of other things that we also do in terms of resources. We have a range of resources that we provide for health professionals and students, and I'm going to go into those a little bit more shortly. We have an annual baby loss conference, so that's held in November or December every year. So we will hopefully be advertising for that very soon, and the whole day is based on baby loss with a different subject every year. We have an online store which supports our work, so all the funding from that goes straight back into our work. And again, we've tried to make sure that everything's really accessible in that. As someone who was once a student with, we actually have another student on the board as well, I understand how difficult it can be to get accessible training materials, for example, and it's something we're really passionate about providing, and also high quality, because I stand for high quality, and I think that's really important as well. We hold face-to-face study days. We have actually made the decision not to hold any face-to-face study days for 2021 because we just want to make sure that we can continue everything that we're doing, and we're not going to get cancellations because of COVID, because we think that's unfair on people's education. So we think that it's important to make sure that we proceed with everything online at the moment. We hold online sessions, and I'm going to go into them a little bit more. So we have a general session, bespoke session, and we also have some more training coming very soon. We have volunteering, so we're based in Manchester, in Stockport, and we have an office base there, but we also have lots of volunteering opportunities across the UK, as well as a big student ambassador programme. So it enables students to become more involved in baby loss, educate themselves a little bit more, but also educate their peers and share amongst friends. And we also have resources for families, and I'm going to share a little bit more about what we're doing with those at the moment as well. So what makes us different? So yes, there is other training. Yes, there are lots of charities, and a lot of charities will have some similarities with us. And obviously there's going to be various training that will have a lot of similarities with us. But I think that we really do stand out from the crowd in many aspects, and it's something that I feel very proud of, and I know our team feel very proud of, and it's something that we really do strive to do differently to what other people might. And we are a small team, we have grown very quickly, but we're also very adaptable to the change that's needed. Oh, sorry, I do apologise. So one thing that we do is we provide everything that we do accessibly. So it's really important to us that that is accessible. I don't think that any family should not be able to access appropriate bereavement care because the health professional provided in that care couldn't access it or couldn't afford it. And I also don't think that you should have to feel like you've not been able to receive training because you couldn't access that, or you didn't know how to get to it, or you didn't know how to pay for it. And that's something that I just don't feel comfortable with. And I have willingly given up a lot of my time over the last 3 years to enable that to be something that can happen. And equally, I think that everyone should be able to have that very easily. We also offer a dual perspective. Now, I deliver all of our baby loss training, and it's something that obviously not many people would really want to be the person who's in that position. But I'm not only someone who has bereavement experience from a clinical perspective, but I'm also somebody who has it from a personal perspective. And Bea was born in November 2017, and so having those personal experiences brought a lot of challenges for myself, but also brought a lot of things that I felt I could share with other people as well. And it's meant that aspects of my care have enabled training opportunities. It's also enabled me to feel like I can advocate more and be able to allow people to feel like they can advocate, because I can not only speak from the professional experience, but I can also speak from the personal. We have online sessions, as I've mentioned. So our online sessions have a range of different aspects within them. And we have our general sessions. So we wanted to make sure that anybody who could attend a session could do so. And these have been available very regularly, and they're on our website. So the general sessions have been tailored to give a very broad knowledge basically to anybody who might possibly come into contact with anyone who's experienced baby loss, regardless of what that loss is. We don't have a hierarchy of loss here. Loss is a loss, and that is all I care about. And that's what people should be educated about. And they should also be able to understand the differences of what those losses are and how we can best support people. So these general sessions are tailored specifically for anybody who's maybe an aspiring student, anyone that's going to come into contact with someone who's bereaved, anybody who is a current student, anybody that is a health professional, and basically anyone and everyone is welcome to attend them. And it just enables people to broaden that knowledge a little bit more so that they have that better understanding and that they feel like they can advocate potentially a little bit more too. We also have bespoke sessions. So these bespoke sessions are tailored. They're tailored exactly for the needs of whoever it is that's booked them. So we can deliver a service that's specific for a university. It can be for a specific course. It can be for your cohort. It can be for a society. We can also deliver them to a specific hospital. It can be for a range of wards. It can be for a specific ward. It might be that you're a paramedic who's been given no training at all. It might be that you're a midwifery student, a nursing student. It can be that you work in a gynecology unit that's, because of COVID, has merged with surgical. And those people who work in surgical don't know very much about gynae. So there can be different challenges that are faced in different areas. And we want to adapt to make sure that people can overcome those challenges and be supported to get through them in the most appropriate way. But at the end of the day, remembering that that family is at the focus of this and we need to do what's best for them. So there's lots of things that we think about to make sure that these sessions are particularly tailored so that you get the best outcome from them as well. We're also in the process of creating other training, and there will be more training available. I really would love to speak about it a bit more, but unfortunately I can't at this moment in time. But there are other things in the pipeline, and we are working on lots of other aspects of what we do and what is at the core of what we do as well. Everything that we do is delivered live, and that was really important to me, that everything that we do have available is live, because I want it to be interactive. I want it to be something where people can ask questions, they can bring up a scenario that they've experienced and might say, well, how would you adapt to this? And it's something that we believe in, because training about bereavement should never be a tick box. It isn't something that you can say, right, I've done this now, never need to visit again. It's not something where you can say, okay, tick box, all done, or you just whiz through the slides and hope for the best. It's not something I ever want anyone to ever feel is the case, because bereavement care is adaptable to everyone. It's holistic, and it's not something that should just be a tick box. And it's something that we do as well. For example, someone contacted us recently and said, oh, actually, I attended 2 years ago, so I don't actually need to come to this. But we have changed so significantly. We actually look and review at all of our training every couple of months. So what you did 6 months ago may be very different to what we deliver today. So we constantly adapt. And I think that is based on the changing circumstances of what's going on in society. It's what's going on day to day. There are new things that are developed. There's new research that comes out, and we adapt to fulfill that. We don't want to be someone who delivers a training that you could do in 5 years and it still be identical, because that's not what we're about. We want to continue to evolve and change, and that's really important to us. One thing that we do have from our face-to-face study days is something that I think is reasonably unique, and we have an interactive memory making workshop. Now, this workshop is something that I've worked on quite significantly, and it's something that I think that can't really be offered in many other settings. And I think for many people who are quite scared of delivering bereavement care, for example, or find that quite difficult, is that it's not a great place to put yourself into and then suddenly have to practice, because it's not the right scenario for someone to be at the centre of a practice piece. So this interactive memory making workshop has specific dolls that have been created that enable families to enable people that attend to practice on a doll that will act in the same way as a baby that has died. We have varying gestations, we have varying races, ethnicities, and these dolls will all handle in the same way that a baby who has died would do. They all have the same kind of colouring. They will all be able to be used for photographs, inkless prints, clay prints, 3D casting, in the same way that any baby that has died has. And we want to allow a safe space for people to be able to practice that, to be able to interact with a baby, even just knowing, how do I handle this baby differently to a baby that has maybe not died, and how will I do that differently? How can I support a family to do that? What are the normal things that happen? What are the normal things that change? And it's something that, yes, it can be a good learning environment in practice, but realistically, if we were able to do that in a safe space, surely this is something that is better utilised. And so we really pride ourselves on having that as something that is available to people. And we also have lots of resources that we've created to support that. And some of these resources are also available outside of the workshops as well. We've also got, for COVID at the moment, we developed a practice memory making kit. So even if you want to try and utilise that with your own hands, you can use your pet. If you want to use a doll that you've got at home, then there's some of the materials that you can use to try and at least get used to the materials that are used, using some specific clay, using inkless packs, and they're available on our website along with prompt sheets that can support you going through them as well. Something else that we really pride ourselves on is the fact that we're not just about, you come to a session, you leave the session, and that's it. There's more to us than just that. So we have support and guidance beyond sessions as well. We are currently developing a new website that's due to launch next month, and we have added lots of new resources into there. You can see there's a screenshot from a video that we have created. We've got lots of videos that have been done, and we wanted to give people guidance of the kinds of things that they would be able to do and how you would do that. And I think there's one thing to be said, that yes, instructions are great and an instructional video would be wonderful. But let's face it, someone showing you, for example, how to set up a cuddle cot. Yes, it's great and you might know how to do it, but how do you actually do that in front of a family? Here's how to do Inclus prints, here's some instructions, but how do I do that in front of the family? And I think this is the thing that a lot of people find challenging. Sometimes it is all well and good to say, this is how you do it and this is how we work through that and these are the instructions. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be able to do that very easily in front of a family, or I might feel a bit like I don't really have much confidence in doing it. So what we've done is created tools to allow you to see what that environment is like, how it would be in front of a family, and how we can express that in a way that would be tailored to that family, providing holistic care, but also making sure that these memory making opportunities are still involved and that we discuss that in an appropriate way. This is how you do it, but also this is how you do it in that setting. And so we hope that those resources will be useful and they can be watched at any time. So if you're on a night shift at 3 a.m, you can quickly watch it and go, right, okay, I feel a bit better now, I'm going to go and do that, as well as having written resources as well, which can give you even more comfort. There's also lots of downloadable resources that we'll be adding, and I'm going to mention a couple of those, but you will see the continual evolvement of that by accessing our page as well. So feel free to visit the website and have a look what will be there. As I said, it will be from next month because we're just evolving that at the moment. And also, we're always here for contact. If you're with a family at a time and you think, I'm really not sure how to do this, or I'm not sure whether this would be useful support, or what could I signpost them to, or I need support, we're here. Just contact us, ask us whether you would do this, or what would you recommend, or this is the scenario that I'm in at the moment, or this is a family I met a couple of weeks ago but this has constantly been on my mind. We can support you with that. Even things like you want to think about a reflection or things that you can learn from, I'm happy to chat with people about how they can work on that, because at the end of the day, working in bereavement can be quite an isolating experience, and you don't always feel like every colleague is going to support you or every member of the team will support you. And sometimes you need a second opinion or someone to just say, you know what, you did that really well, or this was done really well, but maybe we could consider this in the future. And little things like that can be really useful. So if you need support, just remember that it is there for you. We create resources that have family at their focus, and I think it's really important that that is something that we continue to do. Now, we have lots of resources that we're developing and have developed already, and some of those may be things you're already familiar with, but it's even down to the basics of, if you're familiar with a birth plan, for example, a birth plan isn't just for a live birth. It can be something that's utilised in more than just a live birth. Babies that have died lower gestations than maybe would typically use a birth plan. So even if you are working in a gynae department, even if you are working with someone who's had an earlier loss, they are things that can be considered. And it's a reminder to families that all your choices haven't been taken away. You have these choices, these are your choices, and I'm going to advocate for you. And these are the things that I'm going to remind you, this isn't something you've lost control of. This is your control being given to you. You are welcome to use that and to bear that in mind. So considering that, that can be really useful. We also have lots of other resources we've created to enable families to have memory making opportunities that otherwise may not be there. So we absolutely love the work that Lewis do, and they supported us so much in a lot of the things that we do. And their memory boxes have so many ranges of materials in them that support families. And we've wanted to add to those and support additions to what can be done with those. So, for example, we created a memory making kit. So that memory making kit can allow people to create imprints onto the clay. So for example, the clay kit that's included in the For Lewis pack, they can imprint onto that clay and put a name onto there. So in a lot of cases, people will use a pen and scroll it into the clay, or they will use like something sharp to do that, but it doesn't always look very neat, and later down the line it's something you want to keep and continually look at. It can be nice to have that imprinted on there. Some babies will have an abnormality that means they may not be able to have hand or footprints, and that might mean that that family feel quite upset that they're not able to use that clay. It provides an opportunity for memories to still be made with that clay by using the baby's name, writing the date of birth, putting a quote in there. There can be numerous ways to utilise that. And equally, families can still create tangible memories, something they hold on to, something they can look back at, even if their baby can't have prints. So say, for example, their baby's of a very small gestation and we're finding it very difficult to do prints, then that can still be something that's made and still something that they've got tangible to take home. And it's something to bear in mind that a lot of families will go home with very little, and especially those families who experience earlier losses will more likely have very little. So to have something tangible can be really important to them. We're just about to launch a new resource called the Alternative Birth Bag. Now, many of you may already know about it. We've mentioned it quite a lot through social media and through our teaching. And the Alternative Birth Bag is a written resource, and this is the front page of that resource. So the Alternative Birth Bag is a written resource to support anybody who experiences late miscarriage, stillbirth and medical termination. And it will be something that will support families once they go home. I've spoken with so many people who are their bereavement leads and families and anyone who was possibly coming into contact with a bereaved family. And one thing that many people find is that there's so much information we could give, but actually it's really hard to give that information, and they're going to go home for a couple of days and come back to finish their induction. But what do we tell them? What do they bring in? What do they pack? Do you still pack a nappy if their baby's died? And all these kinds of things are things that families worry about and they're unsure about, but actually we don't really know what is best or what to tell them. Is this too much? So we want all that information in one place. There is no chapter in birth books that say, oh, this is the bit that you go to when your baby's died. And we don't know where the birth plan is for when the baby's died. And we're wanting to put all that in the same place so that everyone has easy access. They're not trawling the internet, they're not looking at forums, it's in one place. And this will be a free resource, so we're trying to make that as readily available, and we plan to launch it next month. So do follow our social media if that's something you're interested in having in your trust, and we're hoping that we can get that out as soon as we possibly can. As you can see, we work collaboratively, and that is something that I'm really do prioritise, and I love to work with others. I think it's really important to do that. Everyone has things that they know, everyone has things that they will be specialist in. I do not know everything, I will never know everything, and it's important that we also acknowledge when we don't know something. So it's important that we share that knowledge, we share that information, and that as well as practitioners, whoever you are, whatever you do, you are not someone who can ever work alone, and the team is really important. So remember that in everything that you do, because that is really beneficial to always remember. It's important to signpost, it's important to share, and it will benefit that family overall. Okay, thank you all so much for listening. If you do have any questions, feel free to let me know and I will happily answer them. And this is our information for you to look at if you would like to visit our website or you want to go on our social media pages and find out any more. We try and put things on our social media as often as we possibly can to keep that up to date. And as I said, our website's been updated, so there'll be even more on there very, very soon as well.
Wow, thank you, Steph. Gosh, you're doing so much work, aren't you? I can't believe I didn't know you were providing all that, those extra resources. And you know, sometimes you're not aware, are you, of the enormity of what you're doing. It's incredible.
Thank
I'm
you.
really impressed with it. Yeah, I don't know how you have time to do all that. You must have great support, and yeah, you've got wonderful insight, obviously, and real big. You know, your innovation around thinking of different ways of doing things is incredible. So thank you for sharing with us. Again, you've been having an enormous amount of comments that you'll be, even just in 1 second, we've had 37 just popping up, sharing the everyone's just totally blown away with what you've been saying and sharing. And so just one question we've got here. Mm-hmm. This is from someone saying, do you think that a family that has experienced bereavement takes the experience of the bereavement into further pregnancies and birth? And how would you say health professionals can support that?
Yes, I absolutely do, and it's something that in pregnancy after loss, it's also referred to as a rainbow pregnancy in a lot of circumstances. It's something that people find particularly challenging, and it can kind of reinstate the same emotions. It can make them feel very anxious, and I think really more than anything, listen to them, talk to them, ask their baby's name, ask them if it's okay to use their baby's name. And just consider the kinds of things that might be useful for them. They might have particularly challenging time frames that are difficult for them, certain triggering gestations, for example, and they might have certain aspects that may be worse for them. So depending on their particular circumstance, so say for example, for my circumstance, B died because she had a significant brain abnormality. So because of that, I will find the thought of getting up to my 20-week scan very difficult. And so that will be a particularly challenging point for me. Whereas somebody who's had a stillbirth at maybe 34 weeks may find that cut-off of 34 weeks particularly challenging. But it doesn't mean that just because their circumstances were a termination or a stillbirth, that they don't find conflict with other aspects. People in the loss community find that they get triggered more and more because they know of everything. They suddenly become this person who's reasonably naive about pregnancy and suddenly become very aware of all the potential things that can go wrong and can happen, and so build a lot of anxiety about that because they're worried that it could happen again or something else might happen. So it's more about making sure they've got support, making sure you listen to them, and making sure that they're given appropriate resources and signposted appropriately as well. It is something we're working on with a few more bits. I can't say much more at the moment, but we have got stuff out there that's coming soon, so I promise it'll be there.
Wonderful. Goodness, that's really amazing. Another question. Memory making kits, is it the parents? Are the parents the ones, for say, making the prints, taking the pictures, or is it the nurse or midwife who does this and then gives it to the parents? Can it be either?
Yes, so with our memory making kit, for example, that is something that we would recommend either the hospital can get from us or the family can order, and they often donate it, so they can donate it in memory as well. We can put a sticker on there with their baby's name on as well. But with memory making, I have a view of there's active participation and a passive participation. In a very quick summary, that active participation, the family can get involved, do everything, even if it's things like holding the baby, get the parents involved if they want to be involved, or whoever's present with the baby. Or they can have a passive involvement in that they may not want to partake. So you still make sure you do that in front of the family, ask them if they want to be involved, and they can watch everything. A bit like a lot of people will watch their children doing whatever they're doing. Parents will do the same thing. They will watch what's going on, take it all in. And sometimes they realise this isn't quite as scary as I maybe thought. Maybe I will get involved. But if you take that decision and go out of the room with their baby for no reason really, then you're already taking that decision away from them.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. And then another question is, I'm very interested in teenage pregnancy and also baby loss. I'd like to specialise in the two. Are you aware of any specialist roles that combine the two?
I don't think really there is something specifically for the both, because they are both very specialist roles in themselves. But I think there is, I think in anything, you're not always, we're the specialists of everything really, especially if you're, say for example, if that's somebody who's a student midwife. If you're a midwife, you become a bit of a specialist in every little thing, and you can have certain interests in things even if you're not a specialist, if that makes sense. There are always going to be things that you have a particular passion about. You might be, some people are very passionate about normal birth but will still work in a high risk department because they try and normalize things in a high risk environment. That's something I'm very passionate about, but just because I wouldn't say that's my specialism doesn't make me someone who's passionate about it either.
No, wonderful, thank you for that answer. And then another one, how do we download the video resources? Are we able to share them with staff in our services? I'm a bereavement midwife and would find them useful as an education resource in workshops.
So the videos will be on our website. So once the new website comes up, which we will share on our social media when the new website's there, they will be on the health professional resources page, and they'll literally just be there. So you can use them freely with whatever you want to use them for. There's no charge, they'll be accessible. You can use them at any time, share them with anyone you want. That's what we want them there for. We don't want to kind of be like, no, this is ours and this is something we're keeping, because at the end of the day, it's about the families and we want to make it better for them.
Okay, thank you. And then another question, do you need to undertake further training to become a bereavement midwife? This is a first year student midwife. Yes.
Yeah, so not necessarily. I wouldn't say specific training, because as I've mentioned, there's not a lot of training really available, but there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of aid that interest really and that specialism. So things like gaining exposure. I think it's really important, as well as somebody who's a student, to discuss that with your supervisors and mentors and say, I understand that I don't need this as a criteria, but also I can't say 5 babies need to die to allow me to qualify, because that's not okay. But at the same time, that exposure is beneficial, being able to make sure that you gain interest and insight, attend training. As I said, our training is readily available, so access that, and as well stay up to date with it, attend it every year, because it will change and it will develop, and things do differ, new things come out, and access whatever you can. Things like the Instagram lives, there's always new things readily available to you, and gain that exposure. There's loads of different things that you can kind of gain exposure on, and just read information, reflect on it, and maybe write things now that you don't really know about, and then reflect on that in a couple of years, and you'll see how much you've changed as well, and that can support you with things like applications and considering what you have evolved and what knowledge you actually do have.
Wonderful answers, absolutely amazing, thank you. Another question, we've just got time for one more perhaps. I'd like to develop a leaflet to give to women who are pregnant after a previous loss to give at booking. Do you know if there's already something out there? Is it something that you'd be interested in working with me to produce? I'm a psychological wellbeing midwife.
So there are a few different resources, but there's a reasonable range, but I wouldn't say that specific probably for that purpose, but we're working on a few things, as I said, so there's a few things out there, and there's a few things that we're working on, and I'm more than happy to support it. So yeah, get in contact. At the end, you can get in contact with us via our website as well, or directly through me. I'll put my email in the comment box as well, in case anyone wants to get in touch.
That's wonderful. Whilst you've been talking, you've had so many comments, and you know, so really supportive comments, and everyone taking a lot away with them. And you've also had individuals sharing your email, your website links, etc. Everybody's been helping each other. You've had some comments like, we have a rainbow clinic at our trust. I often see ladies weekly in the 3rd trimester and use holistic therapies with them until their birth. I use reflexology, aromatherapy and meditation, and also the continuity really helps their anxiety prior to a rainbow birth. So honestly, you're going to just really love reading all these, Steph. And again, credit to you for what you've done, not just like, you know, not just with your fabulous resources, and they're just so insightful, but what you do on social media as well, connecting people and bringing everyone up to date with it, because, you know, so many there's so many people on social media, aren't they, and they're just watching what you're doing. And you know, I love the session that you did just recently with Ash on transgender. And I just think, you know, if we open our minds and our hearts to all these topics, and you're really bringing all that to the forefront, so thank you. You're going, you know, above and beyond your normal, not your normal, but your core work, your core function, but it's all connected, of course. So yeah, you can read them all at your leisure, Steph. I can't see any more questions, so if that's okay, we can finish there.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anything else
Sheena.
you want? We're a bit before, we're 2 minutes away from time. So is there anything else you wanted to say?
I think just more than anything, just keep having a look at the resources that we do bring out. Those videos will be available from April, and we've got lots of the downloads that will be there, and there's also stuff directly for parents as well. So the production of the alternative birth bag will start, and we will have a pilot amount initially, because we want to make sure that it gets to the people who need it, but we also would appreciate feedback. So if you're potentially interested in being a pilot site, and I can maybe make people who are here the first that can receive that, so just send me an email with the alternative birth bag as a subject if it's something you're interested in, and we can hopefully start that as a pilot so that we know where we're sending it next month.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate everything that you do. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the wonderful Heidi Eldridge. Hi, Heidi.
Hello, Sheena. I miss you. How are you?
I miss you too. It's such a long time since I've seen you.
I know, I'm missing everybody.
I know, we're all in the same boat. I've even got long hair now, and I've never had long hair for about 40 years. Anyway, it's wonderful to see you, Heidi. And I just, you know, everyone can read about you in the programme, but I'm just going to say a little bit about you, because I first met you round and about this time, didn't I? Around and about just after you lost your first son, your little boy, in 2009, when you were 37 weeks pregnant. Such a tragic time. And what have you done since then? Like Steph and others that we've heard of today, you've really kind of become a force for change, and you've created the most amazing wallets, well-being wallets, which I remember you designing them right at the very beginning, and look where you are now. You know, NHS organisations are using them, and they're widespread, aren't they? And they have been for a while, and they're really making a difference and impacting on stillbirth. And your interest in stillbirth is because you discovered that your baby was growth restricted. Anyway, I'm not going to say any more, because I'm sure that you're going to talk all about that. But I'm really, really delighted to see you and to see that you're part of this event. So I'll hand over to you.
Oh, thanks, Sheena. It's so lovely to be here. Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing okay. I know how hard lockdown is, but hopefully things are on the up at the moment. I know the majority of you here today are student midwives, so congratulations on embarking on this remarkable journey. I'm sure there's going to be many highs and lows for you, but you know, you're going to journey with parents at the most special time of their lives, when they're starting their families. So what better privilege than to be able to bring life into the world. So yeah, congratulations. I'm really, really excited for you. So who is Heidi at Mama Academy? Well, as Sheena's just said, back in 2009, I was a regular pregnant mum. I was pregnant with my first baby, so we were obviously very excited. He was going to be the first grandson to the grandparents, so everybody was buzzing. I had gestational diabetes. It was discovered throughout my pregnancy. So I had all my antenatal care at the hospital. I would go there every 4 weeks, and they would monitor my blood sugar levels. I was monitoring my blood sugar levels at home 3 times a day. I'd go for walks in the evening after my evening meal. And it all looked good. Everything was fine. I had quite a lovely pregnancy, to be honest. We got everything ready. The nursery was ready. We had the pram all set up. And then at 32 weeks, I went and saw a consultant, and she talked to me about my gestational diabetes, and she said, oh, this is all looking really good, Heidi. You know, you've got your levels under control. This is brilliant. She said, you know, I do need to let you know about the risks of gestational diabetes. She said, you know, the baby can get quite large sometimes. That does happen, which can lead to complications during labour. And then, you know, if there is complications during labour, then obviously that could lead to a stillbirth. She said, but don't worry about that. Whatever you do, she said, don't think about it. It's very, very, very rare. Won't happen to you. It's not going to be an issue. So I took her at her word. I just pushed it right to the back of my mind, and I never thought about it again. And then I got 36 weeks pregnant. It was my last day at work. I could see the card being passed around in the background, and I went to my routine midwife appointment. I said to my boss, you know, I know we've got my leaving due tonight. I said, but I'm just popping out for an hour just to see the midwife. He was like, yeah, fine. And it was at that appointment that she couldn't find his heartbeat. And she said to me, you know, when was the last time you felt him kick, Heidi? And I said, oh my gosh, you know, I don't know. Was it when I was at my desk at work? Was it last night before I went to bed? I said, I don't know. I'd never been told to keep a note of his pattern. I just thought as he was moving, oh, isn't this nice that I can feel him move? I never knew to note his pattern or anything. So she told me to go to the hospital, and she rang ahead to let them know that I was going. And the sonographer was there, and she scanned me, and she said those awful words that parents never ever want to hear, which was, I'm so sorry, he's gone. And obviously it was just huge shock, huge devastation. I didn't know the babies were dying, this was in 2009, and how could this have happened to me? So Aidan James Eldridge was stillborn on the 15th of May in 2009, and he weighed 5 pounds 4. His death is marked as unexplained on the post-mortem result, and me and my husband were told that, you know, it was just one of those things, nothing could have been done. But when I later did some research, that's when I realised that he was growth restricted. And the Perinatal Institute actually produced a growth chart, and they put Aidan's measurements on this chart, so I could actually see where his growth started to derail. At this appointment, I was, you know, told I'd have better care in a future pregnancy, but obviously that was, you know, bittersweet, because in my head, Aidan wasn't a trial run, you know. And then we had to go on this journey of devastation and loss that you've heard about today, about, you know, preparing a funeral and that sort of thing. So I wish that I had been given more information during my pregnancy. I wish I'd been told about how to monitor Aidan's movements. You know, if I'd noticed a reduction, could that have made a difference? I wish my trust had been using the bespoke growth charts, because that's when his lack of growth may have been picked up by the hospital, and then they might have given me extra monitoring at that time. And I also wish that I'd been given a lot more information about certain complications and what signs and symptoms that I could look out for. Like I said, I used to go for my evening walks to bring my sugar levels down, and a couple of days before he died, I did have this really sharp pain in my ribs. It took my breath away. I had to stop walking. And after a few minutes, you know, it went away. But again, I just felt if I'd been more empowered and educated, would I have thought to ring the midwife at that point? Would I have thought of gone into the hospital and be checked out? So that's something that I wish I'd been more empowered with as well. And I really felt that at that time, there was a real taboo about discussing complications with parents. When I went to bereavement support groups, a lot of parents were saying, oh, if only I'd been told this, and if only I'd been told that, and why didn't they tell me? Why didn't they tell me this could happen? I could have looked out for this. So there was a real taboo around that time. So the UK sadly still does have one of the worst stillbirth rates in the developed world. And according to the latest Embrace data, there's 3,750 babies that are being stillborn and dying within the first 28 days of life at the moment, which is more than 10 every day. And the majority of stillbirths are preventable because they happen so close to term. But by breaking the stigma that nothing can be done, by discussing complications with mothers and supporting midwives, we can save babies' lives. So I'm just going to very, very quickly just gloss over some previous reports that have come out, because I'm not sure if you'd be aware of them. But the Embrace report in 2017, which was looking at the stillbirths in 2015, reported that half of them occurred at term, 2/3 of them weren't screened for gestational diabetes, 2/3 of them they found that fetal monitoring guidance wasn't followed, and half of those stillbirths had previously reported a reduction in fetal movements. The intrapartum report reported that 80% of those intrapartum stillbirths were potentially avoidable with different care. And there was missed opportunities to identify problems. And at that time, quite often, the placentas weren't being sent off for examination either. Then in 2015, we had the Morecambe Bay report come out, and again, it was reporting that there was gaps in clinical skills and training, there was failures of risk assessments, investigations, and lessons weren't being learnt. And then the RCOG started to produce their Each Baby Counts reports each year from 2015, which again looked at term stillbirths. And they reported that 76 of those babies may have had a different outcome with different care. And in 2019, still only 50% of parents were invited to contribute towards the reviews and investigations that were carried out. So that then leads me on to the Saving Babies' Lives Care Bundle, which was launched in 2015. The government made it a national ambition to reduce stillbirths and neonatal deaths by 20% by 2020 and 50% by 2025. I'm sure you're going to learn all about the Saving Babies' Lives Care Bundle and what that means and how you're going to be involved in that. But there was 4 elements, and it was about smoking cessation, identifying growth-restricted babies, a lot more improved awareness around reduced movements, and more CTG monitoring protocols. And then in 2019, a 5th element was introduced, which was about reducing preterm birth. And the studies have proved that by focusing on all those elements together, there's a proven link which is helping to save babies' lives. I'm pleased to say that we're on track for the 2020 target, which is absolutely fantastic. But there's still a long way to go if we're going to achieve the 2025 target. So another report that came out just a few months ago in December, and you may have seen it, it was the Donna Ockenden review for Shrewsbury and Telford. And Donna is actually one of our patrons, but what I want to highlight here is that sadly the same recommendations are coming out in these reports, the same things are being said, and Donna's recommendations for nationwide implementation was more about enhanced safety. It was again about listening to women and families. It was about staff working together, managing the complex pregnancies, having better risk assessments, and informed consent. But what I do feel now, over the last few months working with certain trusts, there is a real sort of change in culture that's happening, and people are talking about it, and things are really starting to happen now, which is really exciting. So Nelson Mandela said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And I'm all for empowering people and in educating everybody. So we're really trying to break the stigma and taboo that if you talk to women or parents about certain complications, that you'll be scaremongering them and you know, inducing fear into them. Now obviously we don't want to do that, so it is important that that is all discussed with them in the right context. We talk about bespoke care, so we can look at what it means for them and their history, but it is okay to discuss certain things with them in the right context. And language is so powerful. We can talk about the chances of things happening rather than the risks, and we find that's far more positive language for parents. And it's important to use sort of clear, simple language as well, and not the medical jargon that you might hear and become used to every day. You can ask parents to relay back to you what you've just said, so you understand that they've understood what you've said to them. I know in my pregnancy, you know, midwives would say to me, oh, you know, get in touch if you've got any concerns. But what does that mean? You know, it's important to be specific, because how would I know if I'm worried? How would I know if I had a concern? Unless I'm given specific information, like if you experience itching or swelling of the feet, that's when I'm more likely to act upon specific things. And obviously we've talked about the importance of telling women about monitoring their movements. And again, in my pregnancy, a midwife said to me, oh, is baby moving okay? So naturally, I just answered yes, because again, I didn't know what that meant. I thought, well, I felt him move last night, so that must be okay. One thing that we're finding as a charity at the moment is we are being inundated with phone calls from parents, and they want us to be like a triage service. They're reporting all their problems to us, and I'm wondering, we've got to do a bit of more investigation work around this, but I'm wondering if this is happening because more trusts are going digital perhaps now, so women don't have that number to hand. They don't know how to get in touch with their midwife, especially early on in pregnancy. They're self-referring themselves through the website, and then they don't hear anything for quite a while until perhaps they've got their first booking appointment. And so there's a real gap there. So at the moment, we're really encouraging trusts and GPs to make sure that parents know exactly who to call and where to go if they have any difficulties. And it's important that parents also feel comfortable in reporting certain symptoms and calling up. If a parent rings up, say the maternity day assessment unit, because they've got reduced movement, say, and they're kind of said, oh, you know, we're really busy, you know, can you call back later? That's really going to put them off calling again. We've also found in this journey that guidelines, research, pathways, protocols, they're changing all the time. Things are always being up to date. New research comes out, and then new processes are put in place. So if you do hear your colleagues giving out old information, then, you know, just let them know. Just say, oh, by the way, this is how we're doing things at the moment because this has just come out, and let them know, you know, it's okay to educate your colleagues and keep them up to date. And we're also told that handovers can be quite difficult as well. There's a lot of situations that you might find yourself in where things are quite rushed. But if you can try and take the time and communicate all the notes and do a really in-depth handover to your colleague, that can be really powerful as well. So this is a little infographic. I'm not sure if you can see that too well on your screen, but it's basically the Lister Hospital published this a couple of weeks ago on their Facebook maternity page, and it just shows the amount of babies that were born in February, how many were girls, how many were boys, and it shows the percentage that were C-sections and inductions. But again, I'm just highlighting the fact that maybe there is still a taboo that we don't like to talk about the numbers of babies that have died, because this graphic doesn't include stillbirths. It doesn't include the neonatal deaths. It doesn't include premature births. And I still think we're trying to sort of hide away from it a bit. And what happened with this graphic was the parents of the stillborn babies felt that their babies weren't being included. So they felt quite excluded from this. But also it prompted a lot of discussion, because the maternity board looked at this and they said, oh, blimey, you know, our C-section rates are quite high, our induction rates are quite high. We need to look at that and look into them and see if there's anything we can do to bring them down. But of course, by not listing the stillbirths as well, they weren't included in that conversation. They weren't looked at. So we think it's really important that those statistics are also included in this context as well. So in 2012, my passion to prevent these tragedies happening to other families led me to set up the Mama Academy, the Safer Pregnancy Charity. And Mama stands for Mums and Midwives Awareness. And obviously our vision is to end all preventable stillbirths that occur in the UK. We do that by empowering people like yourselves, the maternity professionals, on the latest and current stillbirth prevention methods that are out there. And we also inform pregnant parents about the latest safer pregnancy messages as well, so that we can help more babies arrive safely. Sheena mentioned our wallets, and this was inspired through a Department of Health meeting. There was lots of different organisations that sat around the table to discuss what is it that women need to know, what do we need to be telling parents to keep their babies safe. And after that, it was, well, how do we disseminate these messages to parents? So we have come up with our wellbeing wallets. You've probably seen them in many different hospitals. They look like this, and women's maternity notes go inside to keep them safe. Midwives give these out at the booking appointment, because that's when the notes get made up, and also they use all the topics on the wallet as a discussion with their parents, which includes smoking cessation and all the symptoms that they need to know that they've got to report straight away. It also encourages and empowers parents to call. You know, the midwife will say, you're not making a fuss, or don't wait till Monday. If this happens, you have our permission to ring us and let us know. So what is the safer pregnancy messaging that was decided upon? Well, it's about informing parents on why they should attend all their antenatal appointments. And when you're doing things in an antenatal setting as well, you might be taking urine, you might be checking blood pressure. But again, it's important to get the parents involved. You know, let them know why you're doing this, what you're looking for, because that also helps parents back at home as well become more aware of these things. It was about practicing good hygiene, understanding the impact of smoking, alcohol and caffeine. Obviously understanding again the importance of monitoring movements and how to monitor them. And also again trying to break the taboo of, oh, I haven't felt baby move, I know, I'll have a cold drink and get baby moving. Again, we get lots of reports like that on the phone of women saying to us, oh, is this okay? And we say, well, you're getting baby moving, but that doesn't mean to say that baby's doing really well. It's best to go in and get assessed properly. It also includes other symptoms to report, such as itching, bleeding and swelling. And again, on our wallets, we have information about what foods to avoid and the fact that you should sleep on your side. So all these organisations, like I say, were involved in putting this together. We all signed a consensus statement. And so you can be guaranteed that all the information on all of our resources are the official Department of Health's safer pregnancy messaging. And I just want to point out that commercial organisations such as the likes of Bounty and Baby Centre, they're not on here, they're not part of this. I have spoken to Bounty to see if they would sign up to it, but that's been a very long-winded conversation that is still ongoing, to be honest. So when we piloted the wallets, originally we had 15 trusts on board, and all 15 trusts reported a significant decrease in their stillbirth numbers. So this is how powerful and how passionate I am about empowering parents with information. They're now in over 2/3 of NHS trusts nationwide. They do cost 75p each. We don't charge for any of our other resources, but obviously we do need to for the wallets. If they're not in your trust, please just email me. I'll quite happily put one in the post for you. You can take it to your head of midwifery. I can send you an email with all the information on, so that we can try and champion them into your hospital as well. This is really inspiring. This is Sandwell and West Birmingham. Their stillbirth figures were, they had 13 stillbirths in 2014, and then 2016 and 2017 they had 14 stillbirths. What they did in 2018 was they distributed these wallets to all their pregnant parents. They took these cute little pink and blue footprints and they displayed them all the way around the antenatal wards to raise awareness of reduced fetal movements and how you should report it. And in 2018, they had 5 stillbirths. That's what a difference just that one awareness campaign made, which is just huge. This is some feedback from a lady called Fleur, and she said that she just casually glanced at her wallet, which instructed her to call her maternity unit because she had obvious swelling of her hands and face. And she said it turned out that she had severe preeclampsia. I just wanted to let you know how important it proved to be in my case, and thank you for providing action on your advice meant that my twin babies were safely delivered a couple of days later. And here are Fleur's really cute little twin daughters. I'm just so pleased that she read the wallet at that point and went in when she did. So this is just some feedback from St Helens and Knowsley that have had the wallets. And they said that a young mum had a vaginal bleed at 36 weeks and she rang and advised the midwife that her wallet said to call immediately. And on arrival, she continued to bleed and a C-section was performed to help her baby arrive safely. This is from Kettering. They said one mum attended hospital with fetal movement concerns and she had to have a C-section due to an abnormal CTG. And she'd rung because she had felt prompted by her wallet, and she might not have done so if she hadn't have had the constant reminder in front of her. So I'm just going to try and play this video. I've never done it before, so hopefully it will work. But this is a little clip that the BBC News took of our wallets, and so I just wanted to show you it. So hopefully it will work.
Now, it is a simple idea that has saved a life. A list of warning signs given to expectant parents indicating possible problems during pregnancy. For one family from Lincolnshire, a chance look at the notes prompted them to get checked at hospital. 4 hours and an emergency delivery later, baby Amelia was born 6 weeks premature. Our health correspondent Vicky Johnson has this.
She means everything in the world, absolutely everything in the world. It's absolutely amazing just to be a mum.
Amelia, the most precious of babies. Her arrival comes after endless rounds of fertility treatment and after her older sister was stillborn.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Every day we just can't stop smiling at her, can we?
No.
Amelia, though, was 6 weeks premature and her mum Bev only went to hospital after checking the advice printed on a wallet given out by midwives.
Nothing felt right. I just needed to get checked out, and I just looked at the wallet and thought I need to see what it says, and it's just said trust your instincts.
The Wellbeing Wallets are produced by Charity aimed at reducing the number of stillbirths. They're usually given out to parents who've lost a baby, but midwives here are giving them out to all expectant mums across northern Lincolnshire.
This is key information, key concerns, you know, when to be worried, when even on it, when not to be worried. So actually it's just really important. I hoped and I knew they would be beneficial.
Amelia was born following emergency surgery after a scan revealed a problem with blood flow to the placenta.
I just couldn't stop crying because it was a weird feeling, because I was obviously excited and overjoyed and brilliant that Amelia was here, and I heard her cry. But also my mind just went back 18 months ago, because when Alicia was born, I never got to hear Alicia cry.
Proper little sweetheart, and his little princess.
Bev and Pete have the happy ending they've always craved, and now it's hoped the plastic wallets will help many other families too. Vicky Johnson, BBC Look North, Wintringham.
So hopefully you were able to hear that okay. There was a deliberate mistake in there, in the fact that it did say, the presenter said that the wallets were given out to parents that had previously lost a baby, but that's actually inaccurate. They are actually given out to everybody, all the parents that are pregnant. So that's baby Amelia for you. So as we know, the future is digital, and the NHS Digital Maturity Assessment reported that parents still actually require handheld information to read, as well as the digital information. We know it's really important to get the safer pregnancy messages to harder to reach groups as well, via different ranges of methods. So we are working with the digital record providers now, such as K2 and Badgernet. If you use the K2 app, you will see that as soon as parents log in, all our safer pregnancy messaging is there at the front. So we're working with the other providers for that to happen as well. And we've actually produced a pregnancy passport, which will replace our wellbeing wallets in time. And the pregnancy passport looks like this. It's more cardboard rather than the PVC plastic, but again, it contains all the information that the wellbeing wallet does. But what's different about this is, again, if trusts are using digital apps, sometimes if a mother transfers to another hospital, for example, they can't access her notes because they haven't gone digital. So on this page here at the front, this is where a mother's essential obstetric history, so all her risk factors, her blood group, that all gets written on there. So instantly you'll know the essentials when she comes in. It does have a prong, so you can attach the grow charts in there. And it has this nifty little pouch here that you can put scanned photos in as well. So everything can be kept in the same place. It's cardboard, like I said, so it's 100% recyclable. And 9 trusts at the moment are using these because they have gone paper-light. So again, if you'd like a sample to hand over to your head of midwifery, please just email me and I'll quite happily send you one in the post. We also produce these ambulance call cards. I don't know if you've seen these either. I was at a conference one day and the lead midwife, Amanda from the London ambulance service, came to me and she said, "Oh, Heidi," she said, "you know, when midwives are attending home births and they need an urgent transfer to hospital," she said, "we're not responding quick enough." She said it can take up to 8 hours for an ambulance to arrive. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So we worked together collaboratively and we produced these call cards that go in all the home birth packs, and they're also available at the standalone birth centres as well. And they contain the key trigger words that they need to say down the phone in order to get a category 1 response from the ambulance. And we've also produced these for other ambulance services as well. So if you think that would be beneficial at some point in your trust, let us know. We'll get in touch with your ambulance service and we can work on them. And also, we are working on lots of other resources at the moment. So in your practice, if you come along certain issues or problems that you experience and you think, oh, that would be really, really helpful for us as a maternity service, please just get in touch and let us know and we can help you develop that. We have our Call the Midwife posters. We've developed these as very pictorial so that they assist parents with low literacy levels, and they're obviously ideal for non-English speaking parents as well. I've got loads of them. So if you're in any antenatal setting and you think, oh, that would be a great space for a mama poster. Again, just let me know and I can send them to you in the post, no problem. We also produce these rainbow stickers as well. They're for parents that have experienced a previous loss. They go on the notes or our passports. We're developing lots of different stickers for lots of different high-risk pregnancy groups that will go onto the passport. So if you need one of these, again, just let us know. But also if you see a rainbow sticker, then you'll know what it is. It's acknowledging that this parent had a previous loss. There's room on the sticker to write that baby's name and date of birth on it as well. So again, you can acknowledge that baby by saying its name. But at least then you'll know exactly what those stickers are for. And we also produce our leaflets, which again contain all the Department of Health Safer Pregnancy messaging in. We've got them available in 11 different languages currently. Again, my house is full of them, so if you'd like some, let me know. But we're also developing them in another 10 languages as well, so they should be available in the next couple of months. A couple of years ago, we collaborated with the Royal College of Midwives, and we have produced an iLearn module that's all about preventing stillbirth. So if you are an RCM member, you can go onto their site, go onto the iLearn section and search Saving Babies' Lives, and then you will see our iLearn module come up, which will contribute towards your CPD as well, so you can have a go at that. It is quite interactive. I have flyers available as well, so again, if you wanted to display them in your uni or the staff notice boards or whatever, then just let me know and I can send you some of them. We also produce these little cute booklets for midwives. We just want to provide you with the latest stillbirth stats, the latest embrace findings, and all the current stillbirth prevention initiatives that are taking place at the moment. When we hear of other trusts that are being amazing with their innovations because they've, they've got a new initiative taking place and they've been able to reduce their smoking cessation by X% or something like that, we grab hold of that and then we put it in our presentations or we put it into these booklets. So if you'd like some booklets for your colleagues, then just get in touch. Do check out our website. It's constantly being updated. There's a page on there just for study days, and they're all online at the moment. So take a look at that and see if there's anything that takes your fancy that you want to do. But our website is how we keep you guys up to date with all the research that's taking place, all the new guidelines. For example, just recently a new study came out by Alex Heasel, and it shows that there is a link between caffeine and stillbirth. So we will be updating all our information soon about caffeine intake as well. So as soon as things like that come along, we will put it in an e-newsletter and we will send that out. So if you can, grab your phones, go onto our website, and in the top corner it says join our mailing list. If you click on that, we will keep you up to date with an e-newsletter. They only go out sort of every 2 to 3 months, so you won't be inundated. You don't have to worry about that. You're also free to pass your parents onto our website. We don't have competitions and celebrity gossip. We don't want to keep parents up to date with the Kardashians. It's just all your essential pregnancy information, what parents need to know. We've got things on there such as optimal cord clamping, postnatal depression, breastfeeding. There's lots of information on there, and we also collaborate with all the other charities, so you'll see that there's lots of different topics on there for parents to look at. Both myself and my colleague Chris are available to speak at any study day or conference that you're organising to take place. Again, we talk about the current stillbirth initiatives, but any theme or topic that you want covered, we work with so many different healthcare professionals, so we can always find someone in a specialist field that you want to talk about. And also myself and Chris are quite happy to talk about our experience of losing a baby as well, if that's the theme of your study day. For all you social media gurus, we're constantly putting safer pregnancy messaging on our social media. So do follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and feel free to share any of our stuff. We always say to the maternity units, you know, just grab our infographics and put them on, because obviously we want this to reach as many pregnant women as possible. And we always have a weekend reminder on there as well, that parents shouldn't delay in getting assessed, that the maternity unit is available 24 hours, that they don't have to wait till Monday. We've got a really exciting challenge coming up that's starting on the 1st of April if you wanted to get involved. It requires walking or running 2 miles every day in April. We want to improve people's mental health, and hopefully it will help us raise a bit of money as well to continue our work, because obviously fundraising has been down considerably this year. It's called Miles for Mama. You'll get a free Mama t-shirt. So if you want to join us, I think we've got over 200 people signed up already. Just go onto Facebook and search for the Miles for Mama group, and then you can join us on that. We have a shop that's part of our website as well. We have these beautiful midwife mugs that were designed by Sketchy Mama. So if you are a social media guru, you should know who that is. They're absolutely gorgeous, so you can get them on our website, and we have other things on there as well, such as our supporter pins and face masks and t-shirts. And we're developing a lot more resources for you guys on there as well, so watch this space. So just to wrap up then, really, the stillbirth rates did remain the same consistently for over 20 years until 2012. 2012 was when Mama Academy was established, and that was the first time in 20 years that there was a significant decline in stillbirths. There was 3,558 stillbirths in 2012, and then year on year it's continued to decline significantly. 2019 there was 2,522 stillbirths, and as Steph mentioned just a minute ago, you know, it's important to remember that every one of those numbers is a family. But we're making progress. You know, this is really, really encouraging, and it's really exciting, because it's not just 100 babies that are being saved every year. If you look back to 2012, that's actually 1,000 babies that are being saved every year since 2012, and it's really, really encouraging. And you guys are going to be part of it. So together we can save babies' lives. So I just want to thank you for listening to me. This is how you can get in touch and contact me, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have. I think it's now back over to Sheena.
Heidi, thank you again for such an amazing presentation, so full of information, and those statistics, wow. So hopefully your work has contributed to the drop in stillbirth rate. I think the joint effort with everyone together, just really focusing on it, has obviously made a difference. And you know, your wallets have definitely, I'm sure they've had an enormous impact, because giving that information to, like you were saying, empowering individual families, women and families, to be able to have access to that information is fantastic. So someone said, aside from your amazing work, the wallet helped me to locate a clinic which I'd been trying to find for 15 minutes during my antenatal placement. I saw a woman with the wallet from a distance, and I said, it's fab, and I followed her. When I caught up with her, I said, thank you for your help. So a midwife has found information from a wallet that she was trying to find in the antenatal clinic, because she saw a woman with one of your wallets and she chased her.
Oh, wow.
So there's some absolutely brilliant comments on here. I haven't seen any questions yet. They're just comments to say, oh, there's the comments about the fact that some hospitals have they've gone paperless. So you've pointed out what you're going to be doing about that, which is which is great. And you've already got things with K2, etc. When you say K2, Heidi, what do you mean? Do they have an app for pregnancy or something?
Yes, they do. Yeah, there's an app called My Pregnancy Notes, and there's an app called Mum and Baby. So London are using the Mum and Baby one, and then my local hospital, Ashford and St Peters, are using the K2 one, and then there's a Clever Med one, which is the My Pregnancy Notes, but that's actually about to change very soon. So it's all very confusing. If only there was consistency in the NHS, Sheena, hey?
I know. What a shame. What a shame that they use it.
It's very challenging.
Yeah, you always have to be aware as well, wary of who's producing these apps and what's underlying the messages. Do you know, I'm always a little bit like wanting to know about that. But anyway, that's a shame that there's all what you're having quite a lot of questions. Sorry. Where can student midwives get the wallets? They want some student midwives or other people who want to have a wallet. Can they buy one even if they're not pregnant?
Yeah, they're available on our website on the shop. So yeah, anybody can. So again, if they're not available in your hospital, but a mother would really benefit from one, they're just £2 off of the website. So you can just go on there and get one. But you know, if anyone is in a certain setting and they believe that some sort of resource would really help them, then just get in touch and let us know, because we're always developing new things. We've got a lot coming up in the pipeline over the next few months.
I know, you've expanded so beautifully, haven't you, over the past few years? Honestly, it's really incredible and just so inspiring to see what you've done. Now, Jackie asked a question early on, Jackie, who's chairing with me, to say that, have you got information on there about physical activity in pregnancy?
Yes, there is a little section on exercise. And actually that is part of our strategy for this year. We're going to produce some more videos on certain topics, and exercise in pregnancy is on that list. I just need to get a grant. I just need to get some funding. But as soon as that comes through. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Heidi.
Liaise with Jackie, because she's working
Happy to help.
with Public Health England. Yeah.
Fabulous. That would be brilliant. Okay.
Very happy to help.
So great connection there already. See?
Brilliant. Yeah.
How amazing is that? And your website apparently is crashing because everybody's on it right now.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the whole world has gone onto your website right now, Heidi. And what you're getting through is, just an enormous amount of praise and thanks and gratitude, and individual comments saying how thrilled they are to have learned so much from you this morning. So thank you so much, Heidi, because your work is invaluable, and you've gone from making a heartbreaking situation, turning it into a wonderful kind of active, huge organisation, and making a difference for other mums and babies. So thank you so much.
Thanks
really,
for having me.
Appreciate it, and I so loved seeing you today. Thank you for spending time with us.
Oh, thank you. Take care, everybody. I'll speak to you all soon.
Thank you. Make sure you look for the comments afterwards.
Oh, I will.
Go and have a look at your lovely comments, won't you? And have a great Saturday.
You too. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for your support.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks, Heidi. Bye.
Wow. Gosh, it's very emotional, isn't it? I don't know. I just feel quite, quite sad but happy. Do you know, how can you get all those emotions mixed up? I just feel really affected by what I've been hearing this morning, even though most of the talks I've heard before in different places. But it's just, again, it's just really important to keep reiterating these messages, isn't it? And such an important time to be reflecting on everything. Wow. Gosh, it's very emotional, isn't it? I don't know. I just feel quite, feel quite sad but happy. Do you know, how can you get all those emotions mixed up? I just feel really, affected by what I've been hearing this morning, even though most of the talks I've heard before in different places. But it's just, again, it's just really important to keep reiterating these messages, isn't it? And such an important time to be reflecting on everything. I'm going to be introducing now our last speaker for this morning session, and lovely smiling face she's got on the programme. If you go and have a look, it's Jenny Chambers, who's the CEO of ICP Support, which stands for Intrahepatic Cholestasis of Pregnancy. And it's the most common pregnancy-specific liver condition. And you know, this has happened to one of my family, so I'm really interested in this work that you're doing, Jenny. And you've had this condition in your life in 1992, and or maybe it was before then. But anyway, now you've got this amazing charity that you're able to raise awareness and support individuals who have this condition. So we're really grateful, Jenny, that you've come here today. Just before I hand over to you, Jenny, I just want to say goodbye to everybody. Because after your session, I'm going to be leaving because I'm actually doing some charity walking with my grandson. And so I won't be seeing everybody again. I just wanted to say goodbye. But it's been wonderful to be part of it. And I'm just going to hand over to you now, Jenny, to deliver your session. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheena. Thank you. So let's get going. So good afternoon, everybody, and I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about our charity ICP Support, a little bit about the condition, and about our work with health professionals and researchers and other charities, and why we think collaboration is so important. And what we're going to cover today is a bit about ICP Support, the backstory. What is ICP? Identify how charities can really help researchers and clinicians with their work, and what this impact means for people affected by the condition. So how did we come about? Well, here I am sporting my 80s hairstyle and my 80s glasses back in the early 80s. And I was a building society manager and very keen to rise through the ranks of finance. And in 1986, we decided to start a family. It wasn't the easiest journey in the world. Out of 4 pregnancies, I had 2 stillbirths. And it wasn't until my second stillbirth, which was my 3rd pregnancy, that I was finally diagnosed with cholestasis of pregnancy by an obstetrician who actually saw my notes and saw that I had abnormal blood tests in all my pregnancies. And unfortunately, at the time, I'd been told that all the blood tests were normal. And this was actually my first introduction to research, because in my final pregnancy, where I was looked after by Judith, the obstetrician who diagnosed me, and Elwyn Elias, the liver professor who looked after me, I took part in research. And I donated blood, I donated gallons of urine, I donated my placenta at the end of the pregnancy, and I also tested some drugs to treat cholestasis. And the final one we tried was the one that's currently used at the moment, called ursodeoxycholic acid. Why did I do it? Why did I take part? Well, I desperately wanted another baby. I wanted to help others. It was very clear to me by then that women did not know about this condition. They didn't know that itching might be a sign of cholestasis. And I wanted to help find answers. I wanted to find out why my babies had died, because all researchers knew at the time was that yes, babies, mothers who had ICP could have stillbirth. They didn't know what was causing the stillbirth. They just knew it was towards the end of the pregnancies. And I think I wanted to feel I'd done something rather than nothing. After our first baby, Victoria, died, I always said if I had another stillbirth, I'd shoot myself. And there were definitely times after Olivia died when I felt like that. But I kept going because I just wanted to do something. And I wanted to feel better. And for me, taking part in research did help me feel better. And the group that I was working with in Birmingham had started to do their own research by then, and they were publishing it. And this was the first big paper that came out in the 90s, and this really helped me. We have to remember that back in the early 90s, when I was raising awareness, there was no internet. We did have no website. There were no mobile phones. I had to do everything through magazines and newspapers. So this paper was really helpful for me to be able to send to women who were starting to contact me because they thought that they might have ICP. And it was really important because even then I was getting phone calls from doctors who were telling me to stop worrying women, stop frightening them. This condition is nonsense, it doesn't exist. Then we finally got an incidence for the condition in the UK, and that is still used today. And then in the late 90s, I was lucky enough to meet Catherine Williamson and Peter Dixon. Pete is a senior scientist and he studies the genetics of ICP. And Kath heads the maternal and fetal disease group at King's College London. And we got on so well that I was able to be employed by Kath in 2005, based at Imperial College London. And I'm still there today as a clinical trials coordinator looking after the cholestasis studies. At the same time, I was trying to do my bit and raise awareness. And I think this is where collaboration comes in. SANS were incredibly important to me in those early days. They were so supportive of what I wanted to do. And this was my very, very first article that I ever wrote on ICP, and it was published in their newsletter in 1992. And then magazines started to take an interest. And I think Practical Parenting was so brave. This was 1993. Stillbirth was still not being talked about, and it certainly wasn't being written about in pregnancy magazines. And you can kind of get why. But they went and they did a double feature on me, and they really, really helped raise awareness. And of course, every time I did an article, every time it was in the magazines, there was always a contact number for women to get hold of me. And I continued to do that through the early 90s, getting it into the newspapers and to the magazines. And so we started to evolve as a charity. It began as an information and support line because, as I said, no media, no internet. We registered in 2012 as a charity. I was a reluctant registrant, I really was. I know how hard it is to run charities, just how soul destroying it can be, as Heidi alluded to early. Getting the money in, getting the grants to do the projects and the work you want to do is really difficult. We changed our name in 2013 because when I met Kath and started working with the scientists, I realised that intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy is actually the correct name. It's the scientific name for the condition. And I'd been raising awareness of obstetric cholestasis. So you'll find it's used interchangeably. You'll see more and more research papers, information coming out calling it ICP. And if, like me and Kath, you get confused with ICP, OCP, just call it cholestasis. And today, two of the trustees, that's myself and Pete, who's a trustee, work in research into ICP. So we're the largest research-based charity in the world for the condition. Who do we help? We help anyone affected by the condition, not just women who have it. We help any of the family members and beyond that who are having problems because of ICP. Sometimes I think it's really hard to watch somebody go through ICP, to watch them scratch, to desperately tell them that you want to tell them to stop scratching, but you know they can't, and you want to do something and you feel so helpless. So we support all family members and family friends, and we do this in a variety of ways through our online support groups, through our website, and you'll find lots of information about the condition on there, together with all the research papers. We do it through Facebook groups, through our Facebook page, and our support line. And we help people all over the world. Our ethos is that we want to help anyone who's affected by ICP, no matter where they live, if we can. And those are just some stats from our main Facebook group. And you can see, obviously, that predominantly UK, but there's quite a healthy number from the United States, from Canada, from Australia, and from all parts of the world. So what is ICP? It's probably helpful just to have a quick whistle-stop tour, and it is a whistle-stop tour because I know I'm under pressure with this and you all want to get to lunch at some stage. So as Sheena said, it is the most common pregnancy-specific liver condition. It affects around 5,500 women in the UK every year, and it's more common in other countries such as Chile, where the incidence is about 4 to 6%. It's caused through a combination of hormones, the pregnancy, genetics, we see it in families, and the environment. And we don't really know quite so much about the environment, other than researchers have noticed there are more cases in the winter than the summer. And also there was a buzz about selenium, the mineral selenium, and the Chileans found that when it was introduced into the diets of the public, ICP rates seemed to go down, but that didn't go anywhere. But as a charity, we have funded a small piece of research in Nottingham where researchers are measuring selenium levels in women with ICP, comparing them to those with uncomplicated pregnancies. And it's going to be very exciting to see the results. How we increase that mineral, I don't know, but we'll work on that when we know the results. The condition itself is associated with fetal distress, meconium staining, premature birth, and of course, in its worst outcome, stillbirth. And typically the symptom is pruritus, itching, that typically starts from 28 weeks, is typically on the hands and feet, but it can be as early as 8 weeks. It's usually worse at night. It can be mild or severe. It can be anywhere on the body. And more importantly, that level of itch doesn't correlate to the level of bile acids. Also, women present with dark urine. I was forever being told I wasn't drinking enough water, pale stools, and less commonly jaundice. A new emerging symptom over the past few years has been this right upper quadrant pain. We can't explain why women are getting this, but enough women have been reporting it for my professor to start taking it seriously, either as a symptom of ICP or sometimes as a warning sign that ICP is developing. These are pictures of what women can do to themselves when they itch. Trying to describe that itch is so hard. For me, it's like it's under the skin. And what you're doing is you're raking through your skin to get to the itch that seems to be in the blood. And it drove me mad. There were times when I didn't know what to do with myself. And this is what you can sometimes do as a result. That leg looks like my leg. And that back, I can tell you, is absolutely clear outside of pregnancy. And this is somebody that I've helped look after during research. And she's had several pregnancies at the hospital I'm based at. And that's what she does as soon as she develops ICP. And unfortunately, she develops it early. The photos have been shared with permission, but if I could ask you not to take copies of them, that would be really good. Thank you. How do we diagnose it? Well, the most important test is the bile acid test that I've been talking about. You exclude other causes of itch, but of course it is possible to have other conditions and ICP. It's possible to have eczema and ICP, psoriasis and ICP. So really, your diagnosis is being done through the blood tests, and they typically include ALT and bile acids. It's important to note 20% of women with ICP will have normal bile acid results. And the papers and the references for this are on our website as well. And as I've said, a few women become jaundiced, but it's about 5 to 10%. What's really, really important is to keep repeating those bile acid tests if they come back normal at first. And that's because we have research to show that many women itch for many weeks before those bile acids rise. Currently, the treatment and management is to give ursodeoxycholic acid, but as many of you might know, pictures show that it wasn't the wonder drug we'd hoped it was. However, there's new research coming out that I can't really say very much about because it's embargoed, but there is some research coming out to show that for some women with ICP, it is still going to be a good drug to take. Typically, the prescribing is 500 milligrams twice a day, going up to 1 milligram twice a day. Rifampicin is a drug that you add in conjunction with urso. It's a powerful antibiotic, and my professor's used it for several years now. She thinks it works in about a third of the women she looks after, and it does have to be used with caution because it can worsen the liver. Piriton is a really, really popular antihistamine to prescribe. And the reason it was given in the early days in the 90s is because it has this side effect of making the woman sleepy. And I think that's been lost in translation a little bit over the years. And I think some people think it's given for the itch because it's an antihistamine, doesn't touch the itch. But it might help women sleep. The practice of vitamin K, water-soluble vitamin K, was started sort of in the 2000s, and it made sense because cholestasis, which means sluggish or interrupted bile flow, can reduce in malabsorption of fat-soluble vitamins, one of which is vitamin K that helps you clot your blood. And we know that a small percentage of women can suffer from postpartum hemorrhage. So it kind of was logical to use water-soluble vitamin K. No trials were done, no proper studies, and just over time, the experts using it realized that it wasn't really having an impact at all. These days, my professor will use it for women who have pale stools, steatorrhea, or a known blood clotting problem, or if the woman's bile acids are over 100. Aqueous and menthol cream, oh, I wish that had been around when I was pregnant. I really wish it had been around. I got calamine lotion, which is wonderful when you put it on, but it dries the skin, not nice. This is super. This really can cool the skin, and we tell women to put it in the fridge to make it even cooler for them. Weekly bloods are a good idea, perhaps twice weekly, once you get past 34 weeks, and it's those bile acids that are really, really important to monitor. And at the moment, typical practice is still including induction 37 to 38 weeks, but this is changing as a result of research. When I was pregnant, when I was diagnosed, we thought that all you had to do was get the baby out safely. That was it. We now know that ICP is not just for pregnancy, it's for life. And you can see the list of increased risks associated with the condition. Some of them are very small. Cancer, for example, we've crunched the numbers, and what we know is that women with ICP actually have a slightly bigger chance of developing breast cancer than biliary tree cancer. Gallstones, however, really common. I developed gallstones a few years after having Tim, and went on to have my gallbladder removed. And non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, I think it makes sense that those of us who have the genetics for the condition are going to be slightly increased risk of other things, such as NAFLD, especially if we don't look after our diets. And there are still challenges with managing ICP. We need more research. We need it to continue because we don't have a medication that has a really good impact on bile acids and itch. And I've said new research will show a place for UDCA, but I can share with you that that's not to do with stillbirth reduction. There's no monitoring that's been shown to be useful at identifying at-risk babies. And you've got sort of sporadic knowledge about the use of drugs such as rifampicin. And at the moment, we don't have an up-to-date guideline on ICP, but it's coming soon, very, very soon. How do we support researchers? Well, first of all, do women want to take part in research? Just because I wanted to take part in research, I couldn't go making that assumption that everyone did. Working at the hospital showed me that women seemed to do that, but I really wanted to test this out. So this is as a result of one of the surveys we did a few years ago. And as you can see, it was a resounding, yes, they do. So we help to facilitate research. We work with researchers, providing public and patient involvement to their applications. We involve the women in the design of the studies. We're involved in the implementation of the studies because we always get ethical approval to be able to recruit, for ICP support to be a conduit for research. We conduct surveys about what women might think about ideas that researchers have for research, and we host focus groups about potential new research. And we do this around the world as well as in the UK. So, for example, we're working with a group in Australia at the moment who are doing a trial on rifampicin versus ursodeoxycholic acid. And we get women talking and thinking about research. We try and be subtle about it. I know I'm really pro-research, but women primarily come to us for that connection and for that support. That's why I started what I started doing, because I felt very, very isolated. But what we tend to do, we show the research in action so that they get used to research being quite commonplace in ICP. And we do that through our website. We show what we're doing. That's a freezer we bought, for example, for Nottingham. That's one of our research midwives recruiting someone. She's taking part in our metabolic profile study. We hold Facebook Live sessions and we hold online focus groups. Well, does it have an impact? Has this all had some sort of impact? And it was sort of really hard trying to think of some examples to give you, because there are so many about the impact we've had. But I've been talking to you about bile acids and the importance of bile acids, and it's possibly helpful just to think about what bile acids are and what they do. And we need them to live. We cannot live without bile acids. They're produced in the liver, they're stored in the gallbladder, and every time you eat, your gallbladder contracts and pushes the bile containing bile acids into the duodenum, and then that coats the food that comes through so that the body can take up the fat soluble vitamins it needs, like vitamin K. And it's got this fantastic enterohepatic circulation, goes down through the intestine, lots of things happen. It gets conjugated, unconjugated, and then it gets sent up via the hepatic portal vein back to the liver. It's a fantastic recycling machine. And only about 5% of bile acids actually get excreted via urine. But they're very powerful to do their job, and that means when the body can't keep them regulated, they can spill out into the bloodstream, and as in cholestasis of pregnancy, and they are quite toxic. But as a result of the research that women took part in, and when we started to collect the data, which we started to collect back in 1998, this is what it has led to. Us being able to send women to the researchers if they were interested in taking part in research has helped to swell the data. And although it's taken 20 odd years, this is a result of us working with researchers, a fantastic meta-analysis from Caroline Ovadia, who was able to set the level at which stillbirth risk occurs, which is 3.44% when bile acids are over 100. And this brings reassurance. This means 90% of women with ICP can be reassured about the safety of their baby, because 90% of women will have bile acids under 100. And this is just starting to filter through into practice. And then the researchers thought, well, how does it cause stillbirth? We've proved it is correlated to stillbirth. How does it happen though? What's the mechanism? And Kath had a hypothesis that very high level of bile acids cause very subtle heart arrhythmias in the baby's heart. And they focused on the heart because sadly, what we know with ICP is when stillbirth occurs, it occurs quite suddenly. And what is the organ in the body that can shut down so quickly? And it's the heart. And that's a picture of me with Olivia after I had her. And we know that in the afternoon, Olivia was alive. I went to the midwife, I had a check, listened in with the sonic aid. She was alive around about 3 o'clock. And by 8 o'clock, it was being confirmed to us that she died. So we know it takes place suddenly. So what the researchers want to do is more research to find out, is it the bile acids? Do they cause these subtle heart arrhythmias that you can't pick up on a CTG? And that's why CTGs aren't really useful in monitoring ICP. And we designed and developed the study BEAT, Bile Acid Effects in Fetal Arrhythmia study, and through the charity, women took part in that. How can we help with guidelines? Well, we worked with the RCOG on their latest guideline. It should be out this year, and we were invited to review it last year. And in it, they wanted to introduce a new classification for ICP that introduced the term hypercholinemia of pregnancy. And what that means is raised bile acids in pregnancy. And we felt that was a little too much. We thought that was complicating things for women. We suggested an alternative. We put it out to women to see what they thought. And 86% of them felt that the slightly basic but simple classification of mild, moderate and severe ICP was what they understood better, and they felt that that's what they want. Will it be incorporated into the new guideline? Well, we're going to have to wait and see. How can we help health professionals? Well, we have a specific Facebook group for health professionals. Got to be honest, I thought lots of questions would be asked and it's quite quiet. Nonetheless, we're there to answer any questions, and we can share the latest research as it's happening. So often before you even get it in your hospitals, if you're based in a hospital, if you're midwife, you'll see it there first. You'll see it with us first. We can be used as a referral organisation for anyone affected by the condition. My dream is that when a midwife or a doctor thinks ICP, they think ICP support, and that they have confidence in referring women to us. And we can give the most up-to-date information in the world because two of us work in research, and our information leaflet you can download from the website, and it's free to all trusts. We give presentations, we provide infographics. I've written an iLearn on ICP for the Royal College of Midwives. But we come back to collaboration because we know our limitations. Yeah, we know our stuff about ICP, but you're the health professionals. It's really, really important that we know and keep referring women back to their midwives, back to their doctors. This is an example of the kind of infographics that we've been putting together in the last few months and using it to raise awareness and to educate. And is it going to have an effect? Is this collaboration with researchers and health professionals? Is us all working together? Does it have an effect on women? Well, I think it does. I think it will reduce anxiety and confusion. And that is pretty evident at the moment, that there are still women who are fighting to get bile acids, being given conflicting information by health professionals within their own hospital. I think that will be helped by the guideline when it comes out. But I think working together, getting there to get that guideline is going to reduce anxiety. It's going to improve the information and the guidance that's given through our website, the most up-to-date in the world, through the guideline, through EASL, which is the European Association for the Study of the Liver, and I've been asked to sit on their guideline for liver disease in pregnancy. And the Royal College of Midwives, Gail Johnson is just amazing. She supported me with writing an iLearn on the condition, and I have to say at times it felt like having a baby, because I definitely got to that stage where I was saying to her, I can't do this, okay, I can't do this, I've had enough, I'm going to give up now. And she was going, no, you're nearly there, you're nearly there. And so the iLearn was born, and I hope it's been watched by many midwives. But we can't do it without researchers. This is the team that I'm part of. And what I love about this team is they see beyond the condition. They see the human person behind the condition. Some of them will never get to meet a patient. They're busy looking down microscopes, busy looking at the genetics, busy doing experiments, but they don't forget why they're doing this research. They all care passionately about the women. We can't do it without health professionals, without and those wonderful journals who have accepted our articles for publication. That's raised awareness. The doctors and the midwives who support us and believe in what we're trying to do, and those brilliant research midwives who help with the studies. And we can't do it without other charities. This is just a handful of the charities that have supported me. You know, it makes such a difference. Heidi flags up itching. Jane has just been a massive support over the years. And Steph, well, when we talked about having a conference, she just went ahead, she got it done. She's been like a breath of fresh air for an old jaded veteran like me. And it's just been wonderful to have this collaboration. And I think it's just proof that we can be small, but we can be mighty too. And finally, a big, big thank you to all the women who take part in the research, who give us their ideas, and to our little itches who make what's sometimes a tough job really, really worthwhile. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, that was wonderful, Jenny. Thank you very much. You've done a fantastic job. Not only have you done an absolutely brilliant presentation, but you've done a great summary, so you saved me doing a summary. Thank you. That was wonderful. Now, we have got a few wee questions, okay? So I've actually taken, because I've been losing track of it, I've taken some photographs of the questions so that I can get it bang on. So this is from Jen, and Jen asks, I'm currently pregnant with my third baby, first girl, and have had unbearable itching on my hands, feet and lower legs. Never had it in previous pregnancies. First LFT was within normal range. Tests to monitor at the end of pregnancy. Now, I've taken the photograph, but I can't quite get to the rest of it. So, but basically, is there any sort of advice you can give Jen?
I missed a bit of it. I've heard that she had some LFTs. Does she have bile acids done as well?
Yes.
And everything's come back normal.
Yeah, I'm just going to try and chase this, but
yeah, she just needs
apparently, yeah.
Yeah, she needs to keep being tested. The bile acids are key. They really are the only blood test that confirm the condition. They are the key test. And you know, they're not expensive. The bile acids cost about £11 for the NHS to perform. That's not an expensive test when you think of the potential devastating consequences that you can avoid. But it is possible to itch for a very long time and for those bile acids to be normal. So keep getting them tested.
Thank you. Apparently it's a bit crackly. So I'm going to try and speak a little bit slower to see if that helps. Right. So a question from Rachel. I'm not sure if it is related, but for those who have conditions such as urticaria that are due to high levels of histamine in the body, is there any evidence that they are at higher risk of developing ICP?
That's a really good question. And I think my immediate answer would be, I don't know. I'd probably have to go and talk to my professor. My inclination is no, because this condition is not caused by histamine levels. It is caused because the liver cannot process or keep regulated the bile acids. And actually, confusingly, it's not the bile acids that cause the itch either. It's two other substances in ICP. One is called lysophosphatidic acid, LPA, and the other is sulfated progesterone metabolites, the breakdown products of the hormone progesterone. And those two substances are more directly linked to the itch, but it is the bile acids that are more directly linked to stillbirth. So I don't think the histamine levels are going to be a problem, but if the person asking that question wants to email me, I will go off and make sure I double check this with my professor.
Thank you for that, Jenny. Now, Tara has a question, a very simple one, but a brilliant question. Does not having a gallbladder increase the risk?
It is a good question, and you'd kind of hope, wouldn't you, that having your gallbladder whipped out is going to solve the problem, and unfortunately, nope. Because again, what's happening is all you're doing is bypassing your storage bag. But those bile acids, that bile is trickling through from the liver, through the bile ducts, and it trickles down into the duodenum, and it still contains the bile acids, those pesky bile acids that can cause stillbirth. So all you do when you have your gallbladder out is just remove the storage vessel for it. But it's a great question.
It is, isn't it? Oh, that's really interesting. Like before, we were getting lots of brilliant comments from the midwives, future midwives and so on out there. And we've got Imogen here who has had the condition, and she's really suffered. Let me just say, when you were showing this, the images of legs and arms, what she says is it's important to ensure communication to women just doesn't stay at hands and feet. On our booking notes, although it currently does at present. With my ICP, my symptoms presented with mostly itching around my stomach and all over my legs. So I think, yeah, that's a good sort of, comment and fair comment.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were just so many images I could have shared with you. And on our website, we've got a fantastic image of where women itch in ICP. We did a survey a few years ago, and it is everywhere. I was lucky, mine sort of stopped at the neck, but there are women who itch in their ears, in their mouth, in their eyes, absolutely everywhere. The other thing I'd just like to point out is the itch doesn't always have to be severe. And that's why we don't tend to focus on raising awareness of severe itching as a charity. We raise awareness of itching, because you can have mild itch and really high bile acids, and you can have severe itch and really low bile acids. So our emphasis is on itch per se. And for me, I think the clue is always if somebody's itching more at night. So if I'm recruiting someone to research in our hospital, what I will sort of always get into the conversation is, do you notice if you're itching at any particular time of day? And very often the response is always, oh yeah, it's worse at night. And some people say, well, that's because you're distracted during the day, you might have a job, you're not thinking about it. There is something very weird about the nighttime itch, and it is very, well, for me, it was very different to the itch that I had during the day. And it definitely kicked in round about 5 or 6 o'clock every evening and didn't leave me until about 5 a.m. in the morning.
All right. I've got one final question from Karen, and Karen is asking, is it correct that this is very common in women of Asian origin?
That's a really good question too. And it's not that it's really common, but it is more common. So that 0.7% figure I gave you, of that 0.7, 1.2% of South Asian women, so that's women whose family birth origins are India or Pakistan, have a 1.2 incidence. I don't have an incidence to give you for Black women, Black African, Black Caribbean women, but that population, they do develop ICP as well, but they're much more in the minority.
All right, thank you very much. Lots of positive feedback. I'm sure you'll be able to read it yourself, Jenny. Lots of thank yous, we've learned so much. And I have to say, I mean, I've commented myself, as an ancient midwife, I've learned a lot. This is something which was kind of at the back of my mind, which I knew about, but I didn't know the detail. And it's not something that you come across every day, but really brilliant to learn, for me, really refreshing, something new, something interesting like this. A wonderful charity. Good luck with the charity and keep going, because you're helping. There's been a few thank yous in the comments saying that you've helped me, the charities helped me as well, so really nice comments. You'll enjoy reading them.